Chapter 1. Rebirth. It hurts. The pain of being torn apart and devoured by zombies had not yet faded when Meng Sherwan suddenly struggled upright. She felt something soft beneath her, while bright sunlight streamed in through the window. This is my RV? Wasn't it taken by that scumbag and that shameless woman on the very first day of the zombie outbreak? She quickly felt around the bedside and found her phone. The screen showed 9 a.m. on May 20th. The zombie outbreak was still 3 hours away. I've been reborn. Meng Sherwan quickly accepted the fact. Suppressing her excitement, she turned and got out of bed. The bed could be raised and lowered. Once she used the remote to raise it, a U-shaped living room area appeared beneath it, with a small adjustable dining table in the middle. Meng Sherwan walked over to the table and lightly pressed the display mounted on the wall. The screen popped out and slid to the left, revealing a neat square opening behind it. The opening led to the driver's cabin. Meng Sherwan had specifically had it built when designing the RV. It made it convenient to move between the RV and the driver's cabin without having to get out and walk around from the outside every time. The driver's cabin was spacious. Meng Sherwan skillfully turned the key and started the engine. She had to return home first to take Snowstep, the cow-patterned cat she had raised for 2 years. In her previous life, a month after the zombie outbreak, a rescue team found her and took her to a base. She had barely settled in when a group of men robbed her. During the confrontation, Snowstep ran out of the bag where she had been hiding and leaped at the robbers, scratching wildly. But how could a small cat stand a chance against a group of men? Snowstep was beaten to death right in front of her. Having been given another chance at life, she would live well, and Snowstep would live well too. Whenever she thought of the pair of scumbags at home who had caused this tragedy, anger surged through Meng Sherwan. She had poured a great deal of thought into designing this RV. It was built on a light truck chassis, making it larger than ordinary RVs. It was fully equipped with all kinds of appliances, practically a small mobile home. Yet on this very day in her previous life, when the zombies broke out, her half-sister and her own fiancé had seized the RV and left her to fend for herself. Later, Meng Sherwan struggled desperately through 3 years of the apocalypse, barely managing to stay alive. Meanwhile, the two of them drove around in her RV, enjoying abundant food and drink while avoiding disaster. They lived quite comfortably. Meng Sherwan parked the RV in the villa's garden, jumped down from the driver's cabin, and headed straight for the villa. As soon as she entered the living room, she saw a harmonious family of 4 chatting and laughing together. When they saw her come in, the lively atmosphere grew somewhat tense. All 4 pairs of eyes turned toward her in unison, each wearing a complicated expression. Sis. Meng Qingyue stood up and smiled sweetly at Meng Sherwan. Gu Jinshan and I just got back after registering our marriage. Come have some wedding candy with us. At those words, Meng Sherwan narrowed her eyes and silently ground her teeth. Her mother had fallen ill and died when she was 10. 6 months later, her father brought home a woman and a half-sister who was only 1 year younger than her. The very shameless green tea woman standing before her now. Everyone in their social circle who knew Meng Sherwan also knew that Gu Jinshan was her fiancé, man she had loved throughout her entire youth. No one knew when Meng Qingyue and Gu Jinshan had gotten together. Yet she had the nerve to smile and invite Meng Sherwan to share their wedding candy. What else could she be if not a shameless green tea? Meng Sherwan refused to indulge her and said calmly, "What kind of tea did you brew today? It smells so fragrant." At her words, the 4 people in the living room gained yet another expression alongside their complicated looks: shock. They all thought that after learning Meng Qingyue and Gu Jinshan had gotten married, Meng Sherwan would surely make a huge scene and turn the household upside down. They never expected her to merely ask nonchalantly, "What kind of tea did you brew today?" They couldn't even see a trace of anger on her face. This was nothing like the Meng Sherwan they knew. Still intent on provoking her, Meng Qingyue continued with a smile, "Longjing. My husband brewed it himself." In her previous life, when Meng Sherwan learned that the two had registered their marriage, she had indeed caused a huge uproar at home, smashing everything that could be smashed into pieces. Then, when the zombies erupted at midnight, the family of 4 drove away in her RV. They left Meng Sherwan behind in the villa to fend for herself. Meng Sherwan forced a smile. "So it's Longjing. I thought it smelled like green tea that had gained human form. From beginning to end, she didn't spare Gu Jichen a single glance. A scumbag like him wasn't even as good as a toad in a filthy ditch. They were all smart people, so how could they fail to hear Meng Shiwan's veiled insult toward Meng Qingyue? Meng Qingyue looked aggrieved. In a relationship, the unloved person is the one who's unnecessary. Gu Jichen and I love each other. Sister, you won't blame us, will you? Meng Hanyuan snorted coldly. Is that how you talk to your sister? Apologize to your sister. Gu Jichen looked remorseful. Shiwan, listen to me. Yuan watched the spectacle from the side. Her face full of smugness. Meng Shiwan took a deep breath. What a room full of trash. She gathered her strength and shouted upstairs, Ta Shui. Meow, a chubby tuxedo cat came bounding down the stairs, duang duang, and flopped down in front of Meng Shiwan, rolling around coquettishly. Meng Shiwan bent down and picked Ta Shui up, then turned and walked outside. Seeing her indifferent attitude, Meng Hanyuan felt a surge of anger. Go go go. You're never home anyway. Once you leave, don't bother coming back. Meng Shiwan opened the RV door, put Ta Shui inside, and closed it again. Leave? Of course she was going to leave. But before she did, she turned to look at the two people who had followed her out. One wearing a guilty expression, and trying to explain himself. The other wearing a green tea expression, and trying to provoke her further. Meng Shiwan raised an eyebrow. You two come here. I'll give you an opportunity to ask for my forgiveness. The two of them stared at Meng Shiwan, who was leaning against the pink RV, utterly puzzled. Was this really the Meng Shiwan they knew? When had she become so easygoing? Even after the man she loved most secretly married her own sister, she could forgive him? Confused though they were, the two walked over to Meng Shiwan. Gu Jichen said earnestly, Shiwan, I never meant to hurt you. Go to hell. Meng Shiwan punched Gu Jichen squarely in the eye, knocking him flat onto the ground. Ever since her mother died and Yuan entered the family, she hadn't had a single good day. After entering university, she became obsessed with fitness. Despite her slender appearance, every inch of her body was defined by explosively powerful muscles. Combined with the fighting skills she had honed on the line between life and death during the 3 years of the apocalypse, that punch was more than an ordinary person could withstand. Gu Jichen was dizzy and seeing stars. He lay on the ground for a long time, unable to get up, while his eye quickly swelled into a dark purple bruise. Meng Qingyue screamed, Meng Shiwan, why did you hit him? Meng Shiwan rolled up her sleeves. Don't panic. You're getting your share too. With that, she began raining punches and kicks down on both of them. Thinking about everything that had happened in her previous life, she felt her anger flare up uncontrollably. This was clearly her RV. There was clearly room for one more person. Yet this entire family had abandoned her at the villa, leaving her to die. Later, when they encountered each other at the survivor base, Meng Shiwan had become frighteningly thin. Gu Jichen stood arrogantly before her, while Meng Qingyue sneered at her. And even her own biological father ignored her completely. They had not given her so much as a bite to eat, leaving her to struggle helplessly in the apocalypse until she eventually died among a horde of zombies. Thinking of this, Meng Shiwan struck the two of them with all her strength, beating them until they lay on the ground howling in pain. By the time Meng Hanyuan and Yuan rushed out with the servants, Meng Shiwan had stopped. She got into the car, drove away, and left the family behind her. All that remained were their furious curses. Meng Qingyu's face was swollen and bruised, and she could barely speak. She's crazy. Meng Shiwan must have gone crazy. If my face is disfigured, I'll never let her off. Meng Hanyuan hurried to comfort her. I'll have the family doctor come over right away. From now on, I don't have a daughter like her. I won't let her set foot in this house again. Meng Qingyue looked extremely aggrieved, but inwardly she was triumphant. From now on, everything in the Meng family would be hers, their property, and their men as well. She had finally driven that annoying Meng Shiwan out. Chapter 2. Stockpiling, stockpiling, stockpiling. By the time Meng Shihan drove to the largest shopping mall nearby, it was already 9:28 a.m. There were 2 hours and 32 minutes left until the zombie outbreak. Ta Shui made her way along the road, and through the opening to the passenger seat, her round little head swiveling from side to side as she looked around. Meng Shirhan unfastened her seatbelt. Tashwe, I'm going to buy some things. You stay here and wait for me, okay? Miao Tashwe pulled her head back in and obediently curled up on the passenger seat, indicating that she understood. Meng Shirhan parked the RV by the roadside, got out, and headed straight for the supermarket. Time was of the essence, and space in the RV was limited, so her goal was to buy only the most essential supplies. Since it was a weekday, there weren't many people in the mall. She pushed a shopping cart at a run through the supermarket, drawing quite a few sidelong glances from the employees. Meng Shirhan went to the fresh food section first and informed the employees at the various meat counters one by one. I want 10 jin of mutton, 10 jin of beef brisket, 10 jin of pork, 10 jin of chicken, and 10 jin of tiger prawns. Please cut the meat into small pieces, pack them separately in food preservation bags, and send them to the checkout counter for me. It wasn't that she didn't want to buy more. The RV's freezer had a capacity of 76 liters. It could only hold 50 jin of meat. Hearing her request, the employee at the pork counter said with a grin, sure. It's not busy this morning, so we'll make sure everything is taken care of properly. She pushed the cart over to the rice and grain section. A salesperson tried to introduce her brand, but Meng Shirhan interrupted him directly. I want 10 50 jin bags of rice, 10 50 jin bags of flour, 10 10-liter jugs of oil, and 50 bags of salt. I want the most expensive and best quality products. Please send them to the checkout counter for me. The salesperson was overjoyed and readily agreed. Of course. Of course. Meng Shirhan had no shortage of money. Once the zombies emerged, money would become worthless, completely useless. But the rice and flour she was buying would be enough to last her for several years, filling her with a deep sense of security. Meng Shirhan went to the condiment section and picked up soy sauce, vinegar, hot pot bases, various spices, baking powder, and some other seasonings. She didn't dare take too much, afraid there wouldn't be enough room in the RV. Even so, she filled an entire shopping cart. She pushed the cart to the checkout counter and saw that only a few customers were paying. Please scan these first. I'll buy a few more things and come back to pay in a little while. With that, she took another empty cart and charged back into the supermarket. The supermarket employees were dumbfounded. It was their first time seeing someone use a supermarket to stock up like they were buying wholesale supplies. This time, she bought various vegetables and fruits that were relatively long-lasting. Apples, oranges, Chinese cabbage, radishes, cabbages, and the like. The refrigerator compartment had a capacity of 112 liters, so it couldn't hold much. After filling just one shopping cart, she moved on to another section. Towels, toothbrushes, toothpaste, toilet paper, shower gel, shampoo, laundry detergent, and similar necessities. 2 or 3 sets of each would be enough. She stocked up on a larger amount of sanitary pads, filling half a shopping cart. As she was about to leave, she passed the beverage section and suddenly remembered that she still needed to buy water. The RV had 4 water tanks. The purified drinking water tank had a capacity of 100 liters. The freshwater tank held 600 liters and was used for everyday needs such as washing and doing the dishes. The greywater tank held 100 liters. Wastewater from washing and other daily activities was stored there, and it had to be drained somewhere once full. The blackwater tank also held 100 liters and was used to store sewage from the toilet. It had to be cleaned and emptied once full. For convenience, she wanted to fill both the purified water tank and the freshwater tank with bottled mineral water. The apocalypse wouldn't bring only zombies. Natural disasters would come with it as well. The first would be extreme heat, making water resources extremely precious. Please bring me 35 20-liter bottles of water. The attendant replied, I'll go get them from the warehouse and bring them over. Where should I send them? Meng Shirhan replied, there's a pink RV by the roadside near the mall. Deliver everything there. She pushed a shopping cart filled with daily necessities to the checkout area and discovered that the items she had requested earlier had all been delivered and scanned. A neatly dressed waiter in a suit smiled at her. Where would you like these delivered? I'll have our employees take them there for you. Meng Shirhan said, there's a pink RV by the roadside. Take them there. By the way, do you have a ladder I could borrow? We do. I'll have someone fetch one. Several employees immediately got busy, pushing the items outside. Once the daily necessities had been scanned, she glanced at the time while paying. It was 10:35. There were still 1 hour and 25 minutes before the zombie outbreak. By the time she pushed the cart outside, the employees helping her deliver the goods were already waiting beside the RV. When they saw Meng Sherwan approaching, a young woman asked with a smile, "Sis, why are you putting so many things in your RV? Are you getting ready to enter a no man's land?" Meng Sherwan was in no mood for conversation. She took out her wallet and handed several red banknotes to each of them. "I'll have to trouble you to help me load everything into the vehicle." Seeing the money in their hands, they immediately became excited. "Sure. Just tell us how you want it loaded, and we'll do it." Meng Sherwan first opened the 2 water tank inlets on the side, then took a small water pump from the little storage compartment beside the side chassis. "Please pump all the bottled water into the tanks." "Sure thing." A young man immediately took over the job. Meng Sherwan then took a small remote control from the driver's seat and pressed a button. The roof slowly began to rise. The young woman exclaimed, "Whoa, the roof can rise too? This RV is incredible. It's practically a steel monster." A converted light truck really makes for a different kind of RV. The young office workers looked envious. Who didn't long for poetry and distant horizons? Yet all they could do was toil away like miserable beasts of burden. The RV had 2 levels, with a small staircase inside leading to the 2nd floor. When the roof was lowered, the 2nd floor was an enclosed space only about a meter high. Once the telescoping poles at the 4 corners raised the roof, the 2nd floor became a terrace open to the air on all 4 sides. Meng Sherwan realized that this space on the 2nd floor was absolutely perfect for storing supplies. Put all the rice, flour, cooking oil, and salt on the 2nd floor. Don't stack anything higher than the surrounding 1-meter walls, or the roof won't be able to close. "Sure thing, sis." They immediately got to work, setting up the ladder. Some passed the items up while others arranged them. 4 strong young men. Even 50 pounds of rice was no problem. Meng Sherwan then called to the young woman, "Help me put the things in the shopping cart inside the RV. I'll arrange them." "Okay." The young woman pushed the cart to the RV's side door and took the items out one by one. Meng Sherwan put the meat in the freezer first, then placed the fruits and vegetables in the refrigerator. There were a few cabbages left that wouldn't fit, so she temporarily placed them on top of the cabinets. She stuffed the seasonings into the cupboards below. The toiletries went directly onto the shelves in the bathroom. Sanitary pads, tissues, and similar items went into the drawers beneath the stairs, making excellent use of the storage space. The group worked for about 20 minutes and loaded everything into the RV. Meng Sherwan lowered the roof and closed the door. The young employees waved goodbye to her. "Goodbye, sis. If you have any more work next time, remember to ask us for help again." They were full of youthful energy, seemingly young people who had graduated not long ago. Their smiles were vibrant and infectious. Meng Sherwan's eyes darkened. Before long, it would be difficult for them to smile again. Chapter 3. The zombie outbreak. Meng Sherwan glanced at the time on her phone. She still had an hour. She hurried toward a nearby pharmacy, but when she passed the snack street, her steps abruptly came to a halt. She simply couldn't make herself move on. After going 3 years without eating a proper meal, she had no chance of resisting the temptation of delicious food. Her mind was filled with nothing but, "I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat." She turned around and ordered herself a serving of braised crayfish, a passion fruit soda, a strawberry shake, as well as some skewers, fried chicken, and a small beer. After placing the order, she took the receipt and headed straight for the pharmacy. Once she finished shopping, it would be just in time to pick up her food. She launched into another shopping spree in the pharmacy, grabbing cooling and detoxifying medicines, anti-inflammatory painkillers, cold and fever medicine, wound dressings, and all kinds of other medication. She nearly cleared out the shelves. The sales clerk watched from the side, looking as though she wanted to say something but didn't dare. In the end, she couldn't hold back. There's a rule against buying so much medication at once. Meng Sherwan didn't even look up and continued sweeping the shelves. "I'll pay you 10 times the price. I need to take everything with me right now. Will you sell it to me or not?" If not, I'll ask at another store. Sales clerk. Well, sell it. She placed several baskets of medicine on the glass counter. The clerk was about to scan them one by one, but Meng Sherwan couldn't wait. I'll transfer 500,000 yuan to you. Hurry up and bag everything. The clerk glanced at the several baskets of medicine. They wouldn't even cost 100,000 yuan, so she immediately began packing everything into bags. When the notification of the 500,000 yuan transfer finally sounded, the clerk smiled like a flower and handed over the bags. Miss, take care and welcome back next time. Meng Sherwan left the store and found a shared electric bike. She hung the bags one by one from the bike, took the medicine back to the motorhome, then rode the shared bike back. She went to a clothing store and bought 5 sets of sportswear, then to an underwear shop and bought more than a dozen sets of underwear. Finally, she went to a pet store and bought 50 pounds of cat food, along with some deworming medicine, canned food and other supplies. There were now only 10 minutes left until midnight. Riding the shared electric bike, Meng Sherwan picked up the food she had ordered and hurried toward the motorhome. At 11:58 p.m., she placed everything inside the motorhome, jumped in, and slammed the door shut. She was ready to face the apocalypse. Takshu ran to her feet and rubbed against them. Being as obedient as could be, Meng Sherwan picked her up and ruffled her fluffy head a couple of times. Takshu, this world is about to change. The zombies appeared alongside natural disasters, as though they wouldn't rest until humanity was wiped out. Yet with this apocalyptic crisis, humanity began to evolve as well. Those who appeared alongside the zombies were people with supernatural abilities. Meng Sherwan had failed to awaken any abilities during the 3 years of her previous life, so there probably wasn't much hope for her this time either. Takshu still couldn't understand what she meant, and continued rubbing her furry head against Meng Sherwan's face. She set Takshu down on the sofa, and began organizing the things piled up in the aisle. She first placed the freshly bought food on the kitchen counter, then organized the clothes. Inside the motorhome, beside the ushopped living room, was a wardrobe about 1 meter wide. Meng Sherwan stuffed the clothes and underwear inside, and it was already packed full. To the left of the wardrobe was a small staircase leading to the second floor. Beneath the stairs was storage space for sanitary pads, tissues, and other items. To the left of the stairs was a refrigerator with doors that opened both upward and downward. Above it was a small storage cabinet that was still empty. To the left of the refrigerator was the bathroom, which contained a sink, toilet, and shower. Opposite it on the left after entering through the side door was a timber-long kitchen counter that extended all the way to the rear. At the rear was a narrow spice cabinet. Beneath it was a front-loading washing machine, and slightly to the left was a combined steam oven and baking oven. Above the steam oven was a drawer for bowls and dishes. The cabinet a little farther to the left was crammed full of spices. The RV is decorated in a palette of macaron colors, giving it a soothing appearance. The moment Meng Sherwan closed the door, screams rang out outside. She looked up and saw someone suddenly mutate in the plaza and lunge at the people nearby. The man who had turned into a zombie opened his mouth and bit down on his female companion's neck. With force he tore open her abdomen, spilling intestines and liver all over the ground, then began chewing noisily. The woman soon stopped breathing. After twitching a couple of times, she dragged her spilled intestines toward the passerby beside her. The scene was so horrifying that the crowd screamed non-stop. The shopping mall quickly descended into chaos. Many people ran out, with grayed zombies close behind them. Those who ran too slowly were caught and devoured by the zombies. The dead turned into zombies, joining the ranks of the predators and pursuing the living. Through the window, Meng Sherwan watched the scene coldly. In her previous life, she had seen far too much of this. Many times. She had also been one of those terrified people being chased by zombies. She quickly lowered her head and looked at her hands, feeling somewhat disappointed. Her body had not changed at all. Sure enough, she had not awakened any special ability. At that moment, a young man rushed out of the supermarket and headed straight for Meng Sherwan's RV. She recognized him. He was the young man who had helped her pump water into the tank earlier. He ran to the RV and frantically pounded on the door, hope appearing in his eyes. He thought that if Meng Sherwan opened the door, he would be saved. Unfortunately, he was mistaken. Meng Sherwan stood inside the RV, looking at him expressionlessly through the window in the door. She watched his terror. She watched the zombies catch up behind him. She watched as a zombie brutally tore a hole in his back. Before he died. Disbelief filled the young man's face. He could not understand why this woman would watch him die without lifting a finger to save him. Meng Sherwan snorted coldly. In the apocalypse, morality and kindness would only make someone die faster. She only wanted to live. Only when she saw Ruorwen meowing at Toshwe did her heart soften a little. The ones she cared about were already by her side. What did anyone else's survival or death have to do with her? The young man's eyes soon turned gray, and he became a zombie. He continued pounding on the RV door instinctively. Zombies did not feel pain, and they were incredibly strong. The pounding made the door boom loudly. Annoyed by the noise, Meng Sherwan picked up a multifunctional outdoor shovel standing beside the stairs, and opened the window in the door. She thrust the shovel outside and with 2 heavy blows, chopped off the heads of 2 zombies. The heads rolled away with a hollow rumble. Just as Meng Sherwan was about to pull the shovel back and wash the blood off in the bathroom, a mechanical voice, impossible to identify as male or female, rang out in her mind. Ding dong. RV system bound. For killing 1 zombie, the beginner's reward is permanent immunity to all damage for the RV. Mission: submit 1 crystal core to expand the space by 1 cubic meter. Meng Sherwan's eyes widened. She was so shocked that she even forgot to retract the hand still extended outside. What was going on? An RV system? Permanent immunity to all damage? The space could be expanded by submitting crystal cores? Was it really that powerful? No wonder Meng Qingyue and her family of 4 had lived so comfortably in her RV in her previous life. So they had been enjoying such a luxurious life. She had even wondered before whether the RV she had designed was really that durable. It had been driven for 3 years, and still looked brand new. So that was why. Chapter 4. The RV system. A virtual cutaway view of the RV's interior appeared before her. It showed multiple areas that could be expanded. The wardrobe, cabinets, refrigerator, purified water tank, freshwater tank, wastewater tank, blackwater tank, diesel tank, gasoline tank. The RV ran on diesel, but it had quite a lot of electrical appliances installed inside. Worried that the power supply would be insufficient, she had also installed a generator underneath. The generator ran on gasoline, so she had added a gasoline tank specifically for it. Oh my god, Meng Sherwan stared in astonishment. Every storage space inside the RV could be expanded. Didn't that mean she could collect a huge amount of supplies in the future? It was practically a mobile energy depot. But when Meng Sherwan thought of the conditions for expansion, she could no longer smile. 1 crystal core could expand the space by 1 cubic meter. Crystal cores were extremely hard to come by. In the early days of the apocalypse, even killing 100 zombies might not yield a single crystal core. It was only after a year that crystal cores gradually became more common. Approximately 1 could be obtained for every 50 or 60 zombies killed. How many crystal cores would she have to find, and how many zombies would she have to kill to turn this into the energy depot she imagined? Still, putting that aside, the fact that all kinds of spaces inside the RV could be expanded was already incredibly awesome. Every additional cubic meter meant an additional cubic meter of supplies, which gave her another layer of security. Wow, is the RV I designed really this amazing? Meng Sherwan's eyes sparkled as she marveled at it. As the people inside the shopping mall ran out, the number of zombies in the square grew larger and larger. Some zombies were drawn over by the smell of blood. They wandered over and pounded on the RV, trying to drag Meng Sherwan out and eat her. But this time, Meng Sherwan no longer heard any loud banging. Once the windows were closed, the inside of the vehicle was completely quiet, without the slightest noise. Meng Sherwan became excited. Is immunity to all damage really this powerful? It can even block out noise? The zombies' attacks did not cause the RV to shake in the slightest. Didn't that mean her RV was indestructible and could never be damaged? With its ability to block out noise, it was the perfect fortress. At the thought, her mood improved considerably. Humming a little tune, she went to the bathroom to wash the blood from her hands and work shovel. Tashwe had no idea what was wrong with her master. One moment she was shocked, and the next she was delighted. Sitting on the coffee table, Tashwe tilted its head and stared at Meng Sherwan with its large, innocent eyes. When Meng Sherwan came out of the bathroom, she put the work shovel back in its place and rubbed her dripping wet hands on Tashwe's head. Let's get to work. Once we've finished sorting everything out and filled our stomachs, we'll go outside and kill some zombies. She had never imagined that killing zombies could be such a joyful activity. Tashwe shook its head in distaste, looking somewhat annoyed as it whined and whimpered. Its voice was incredibly cute. Meng Sherwan turned on the television and played a rather frivolous xianxia romance drama. Then she sat directly in the corridor and began sorting the medicines. She poured all the medicines out of the bags, removed the bulky outer packaging, and kept only the smallest individual packages. She sorted them by type and placed them in the storage cabinet above the refrigerator, which was just enough to fill it completely. The 10 bags of cat food, cat treats, deworming medicine, and the like that she had brought back were stuffed beneath the sofa. She gathered up the trash, put it into bags, and temporarily left it by the bathroom door, planning to throw it all away after eating. Then she took a small saucepan from the wall-mounted rack in the cabinet, removed 5 mantis shrimp from the freezer, and put them on the induction cooker to boil. Seeing the delicious food, Tashwe jumped onto the shoe cabinet and stared at it longingly with its round, gleaming eyes. Meng Sherwan smiled. Wait a moment. I'll give them to you once they're cooked. She picked up the delicacies she had brought back and opened them one by one, placing them on the coffee table. The rich, mouth-watering aroma instantly filled the air. Meng Sherwan began salivating uncontrollably. Food. How long had it been since she'd eaten anything decent? She picked up a fried chicken drumstick and bit off half of it in one bite. The crispy, savory deliciousness was so good that her soul seemed to float up to heaven, and she nearly wanted to swallow her tongue. After taking a sip of beer, she felt she could happily faint from bliss. Meow shrimp, my shrimp. Tashwe, who hadn't gotten any of the delicious food, voiced her protest. Meng Sherwan stuffed the remaining half of the chicken drumstick into her mouth, then walked over to the cabinets, turned off the induction cooker, and poured out the hot water. Once it had cooled a little, she peeled the shrimp, tore it into small pieces, and placed them in front of Tashwe. Eat. Tashwe began gobbling it down, purring happily. Meng Sherwan sat on the sofa and wolfed down the food in front of her. She stripped half a skewer of grilled lamb clean in one bite, took another sip of beer, bit into a piece of fried chicken cutlet, and washed it down with a sip of passionfruit drink. Crispy fried, savory and spicy, fresh and sweet, fizzy, every flavor burst across her taste buds, and Meng Sherwan felt as though her very soul were being elevated. It had been far, far too long since she had tasted anything delicious. She had almost forgotten what these foods tasted like. She ate quickly, but without making a mess. If she started a food livestream, she would surely attract countless fans. Outside the vehicle, a group of men and women were fleeing frantically, trying to evade the zombies pursuing them. They were all wearing the same uniforms and were probably co-workers who had been working together. Someone caught sight of what was happening inside the motorhome through a window, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head. This was the apocalypse. Zombies were running rampant everywhere. Yet someone was calmly sitting inside a motorhome, watching TV, drinking beer, and enthusiastically devouring grilled skewers? Did this person even realize that the zombies outside were eating people? An idea suddenly struck him, and he hurriedly shouted, "A vehicle! Does anyone have a vehicle parked by the roadside? Let's hide in it." "I do." The group immediately ran toward the parking lot by the roadside. But before they could reach it, they saw a zombie in a suit on the adjacent road smash through a car window with one punch. It grabbed the person inside by the hair and bit straight into the driver's head. They could even clearly hear the sound of teeth scraping against bone. Their hearts trembled with terror, and they screamed in voices cracking with panic, "Help! It's not safe inside a car either. What are we supposed to do? Hiding in a car won't work. We need to hide inside a building. Zombies can't get in." The group ran toward the shopping mall again. As they passed the motorhome, they saw that the girl inside had already moved on to crayfish. They began to question reality. Were they and that girl really living in the same world? After eating and drinking her fill, Meng Sherwan noticed that there didn't seem to be any zombies gathered around the motorhome. Zombies could smell human scents and detect movement, allowing them to identify their targets and attack. Could the motorhome block odors too? Meng Sherwan pulled open the window beside the sofa. The nearby wandering zombies instantly whipped their heads around and stiffly lunged toward her. She hurriedly pulled the window shut again. The zombies seemed to lose their target. After looking around in confusion for a moment, they continued searching for other prey. Meng Sherwan understood. As long as the doors and windows were closed, her scent was sealed inside. The moment she opened them, the zombies could still detect her. However, the zombies couldn't damage the motorhome, so they posed no danger to her. It was only that if too many gathered, they might block the road and affect the motorhome's movement. Meng Sherwan pushed aside the monitor, went to the driver's seat, started the vehicle, moved it forward a little, and stopped beside a dumpster. Chapter 5. Where did this badass come from? She returned to the RV and tossed the garbage she had just bagged into the trash can through the window beside the sofa. After tidying up, she stood on the stairs and looked toward the second floor, surprised to find that there was still space up there. 10 bags of rice weighing 50 jin each, and 10 bags of flour weighing 50 jin each were arranged neatly at the rear of the vehicle. 10 barrels of cooking oil were lined up in 2 rows at the front, while 50 bags of table salt were stacked together in their original boxes. They took up only 2/3 of the available space. Meng Sherwan was thrilled. She could still stock up, she could keep going. Right now, nothing gave her a greater sense of security than hoarding supplies. She removed the boxes around the table salt and carried them downstairs to throw into the trash can. Anything that took up space without serving a purpose had no place in her RV. She then pulled out all the seasonings from the cabinets and filled every seasoning container. She even stuffed the gaps inside the seasoning cabinet with small packets of hot pot ingredients and other seasonings, packing them in tightly until there wasn't a gap left. She repackaged the remaining seasonings into the smallest possible packages and stacked them neatly in the cabinet. Bottles that took up a lot of space, such as soy sauce and vinegar, were moved upstairs and placed with the oil and salt. Half the cabinet had been cleared out again, leaving room for more supplies. Meng Sherwan looked happily at the results of her labor. Having even one extra mouthful of supplies could truly save a life at a critical moment. She observed the situation outside. The square had already fallen silent, with zombies wandering everywhere. It was a little after 2 in the afternoon. Everyone who could hide had already done so. Those who hadn't managed to hide had now become zombies. She estimated that there were several hundred zombies in the square, with many more wandering around inside the shopping mall. If she killed them all, she might be able to obtain a few crystal cores. If she was lucky, there was no way she could go down and hack at them one by one. If the zombies came running at the sound and surrounded her, things would become troublesome. But she had an RV now, a vehicle permanently immune to all damage. That meant it should be immune to impact damage as well, right? At the thought, Meng Sherwan grew faintly excited. She went to the driver's seat and started the vehicle, looking at the stone bollards blocking the way ahead. A hint of madness appeared in her eyes. The next second, she slammed on the accelerator and drove straight into them. Under the impact of the RV, the 3 round stone bollards were pushed aside, allowing the vehicle to enter the square smoothly. Meng Sherwan leaned out to inspect the front of the vehicle. It didn't even have a scratch. Her eyes immediately lit up. Just as I thought. The RV isn't merely a fortress anymore, it's practically a tank. If it can be hit, hit it. She looked at the zombies surging toward her, and her excitement grew. If she couldn't kill all the zombies on foot, she would simply drive over them. This was a light truck, after all. Running over a few zombies would be a piece of cake. But she wasn't stupid enough to charge into the densest part of the horde. Instead, she drove in circles around the edge, seeking out isolated zombies and running them over. As long as their skulls were crushed, the zombies would die completely. The zombie horde chased after the vehicle while she drove the RV around aimlessly, skirting the edge of the swarm and hitting several zombies at a time. Under the crushing wheels, flesh and blood were reduced to a gruesome mess. A chase instantly began across the enormous square. Some of the people hiding inside nearby buildings saw the scene below through the windows, and felt their scalps go numb. Where did this badass come from? She's treating the zombies like monkeys. This vehicle is insanely awesome. It knocked over several stone bollards without even leaving a dent. How terrifying were zombies? And yet someone was mowing them down like grass. The zombies inside the shopping mall also heard the commotion and began pouring out. Meng Sherwan welcomed them all. One zombie came, and she ran over one. Two came, and she ran over both. 20 minutes later, blood-red tire tracks covered the square, and scraps of human tissue flew everywhere. It was practically a scene from hell. Meng Sherwan could only pull this off because she was lucky. Today was a work day, and the zombie outbreak had begun around noon, so there weren't many people out shopping. The mall had only recently been built, and the surrounding commercial district had yet to develop. There were hardly any vehicles on the roads, so the zombies nearby were not particularly dense. After she wiped out this wave, not many more zombies came running over after hearing the commotion. They arrived sporadically, within a range she could handle. If she had done this in a bustling commercial district, she probably would have attracted all the nearby zombies surrounding her RV. Not only would she have been unable to crush them all, but her RV might also have been trapped in the zombie horde, unable to get out. Seeing that most of the zombies had been eliminated, Meng Sherwan returned to the RV and picked up the multifunctional outdoor shovel, preparing to get out and search for crystal cores. But when she opened the door and saw the blood and human tissue covering the ground, she still hesitated. After a brief period of mental preparation, she finally closed the door again, dug out some garbage bags, and wrapped them around both her feet. She also found a disposable raincoat and put it on, covering herself thoroughly before getting out. She had prepared all these things yesterday. The RV had been picked up from the factory yesterday, and she had only had time to buy a few necessities. Sofa cushions, bedding, pots and pans, garbage bags, and similar supplies. She had slept in the RV for one night, then traveled back here first thing this morning. It wasn't that she was bothered by the blood and filth after 3 years in the apocalypse. She had long since gotten used to it. She simply didn't want to dirty her nice, fragrant RV later. Walking across the bloodstained ground, she raised the shovel and, as if cutting watermelons, split open the relatively intact zombie heads with a single blow. Some zombies had had their bodies crushed, but their heads were still writhing on the ground. Meng Sherwan went over and split them open. When she found no crystal core inside, she moved on to the next one. The people hiding upstairs had already been terrified by the brutal scene. Now watching Meng Sherwan cut open zombie heads as casually as watermelons, their scalps prickled even more. She's actually a girl. Those movements are way too brutal. This young lady is so cool. The way she chops off zombie heads is unbelievably badass. How does she do it? While everyone else is panicking, she can calmly hack away at zombies. Meng Sherwan earnestly searched for crystal cores across the square. Whenever a foolish zombie charged at her, she swung the shovel forcefully, smashing a hole straight into its head. The movements required to kill zombies had long since been etched into her muscle memory. In fact, a few zombies on their own were not particularly frightening. Their movements were sluggish, and they were not especially fast runners. It was only because they felt no pain and possessed formidable combat strength and because even the slightest scratch could infect a human that they seemed especially terrifying. As long as someone had good physical fitness, knew martial arts, reacted quickly, and had mastered the techniques for killing zombies. Fighting 3 to 5 zombies alone was not a major problem. The most terrifying thing about zombies was not the individual, they were terrifying in groups. When a surging horde of zombies surrounded someone, even an ability user could be drained of their powers and slowly worn to death. Unfortunately, modern people disliked exercising. Some did no physical work at all, and were constantly on the verge of fainting. Most knew nothing about martial arts either, leaving them with no choice but to become food for the zombies. Chapter 6. Expanding the space. Meng Sherwan searched carefully and found 7 crystal cores. It was a fairly good haul. The crystal cores were diamond-shaped and about the size of a thumb, with a translucent white sheen. Held in her hand, they looked like beautiful gemstones. She tore off the disposable raincoat she was wearing, removed the garbage bags wrapped around her feet and stained with blood, and returned to the RV. She couldn't wait to see what the expanded space looked like. With a thought, a see-through view of the RV appeared before her, displaying all of its storage spaces at a glance. How to allocate the 7 crystal cores became the main problem. The weather would gradually become extremely hot. Food and water were the most important things, while medicine was indispensable as well. She needed to stock up on more of all these things. And gasoline. In extremely hot weather, the RV's air conditioner would certainly run non-stop, so there had to be enough gasoline to power the generator. The more diesel the RV had, the better. Thinking about it this way, she was short of absolutely everything. After careful consideration, she decided to expand the medicine cabinet above the refrigerator by 1 cubic meter. Once filled with medicine, it would be enough to last her for many years. She tapped the expand option marked on the storage space above the refrigerator in the RV's see-through view, and a page for selecting the quantity popped up. 1 crystal core could expand the space by 1 cubic meter. Meng Sherwan decisively selected 1. After she tapped confirm, a small number 1 appeared beside the medicine cabinet above the refrigerator in the RV's see-through view, indicating that this location had been expanded by 1 cubic meter. At that moment, the mechanical voice rang out again. Congratulations on expanding the space by 1 cubic meter. All spaces preserve freshness permanently. Keep up the good work. Meng Sherwan's eyes widened, shining like 2 light bulbs.
Permanent freshness préservation. Permanent freshness préservation.
Didn't that mean that no matter what she put inside or how long she left it there, it would never spoil? This was far too powerful. Only someone who had struggled through the apocalypse could understand how incredible this function was. She turned to look at the medicine cabinet, but it didn't seem any different. She walked over and opened the cabinet door. It was still crammed full of medicine, with no noticeable change. Where's the space? Where's the permanent freshness preservation? The moment this thought arose in Meng Sherwan's mind, a vast white space appeared behind the medicine cabinet, where the wall should have been. It was like a piece of white mosaic had suddenly appeared in a vivid world, looking extremely out of place. This was completely different from the dazzling space she had imagined. It was even a little old-fashioned. She reached into the cabinet and pushed all the medicine into the space. She discovered that once the items entered the space, she could use her mind to control how they were arranged, making it incredibly convenient. Meng Sherwan thought about taking out a bandage, and it reappeared inside the cabinet rather than in her hand. How should she put it? This seemed to be high technology that wasn't particularly high-tech. Items could only be moved in and out through the cabinet, rather than being placed into the space directly from her hand or appearing in her hand when retrieved. That meant she couldn't control it remotely. Whenever she wanted to put something in or take something out, she had to come to the cabinet, open its door and operate it. This is still many times better than what I had in my previous life. A space like this isn't something everyone can have. Meng Sherwan was extremely excited. Anything that allowed her to stockpile more supplies could excite her. Not to mention that it could preserve freshness permanently. Of the remaining 6 crystal cores, she used 2 to expand the pure water tank, and all 4 of the others to expand the refrigerator space. 1 cubic meter could store 1 ton of water. 2 cubic meters meant 2 tons. Enough to last her for quite some time. 4 cubic meters of refrigerator space would allow her to stockpile much more food. Meng Sherwan hummed a little tune as she went to the driver's seat, started the vehicle, and set off for the pharmacy. The previous pharmacy had been mostly picked clean by her, so this time she chose another one. The store's entrance was still open, but there were basically no living people inside. When the zombies first broke out, many people's first reaction was to run outside. Later, after discovering that the outside was even more dangerous, those who reacted quickly ran back into the stores and locked the doors. Perhaps that way, they could still find a chance to survive. Meng Sherwan parked the vehicle at the pharmacy entrance, pressed tightly against the door, and blocked it completely. She did not hurry to get out. Holding an outdoor work shovel, she went to the side door, leaned over the window, and knocked on the vehicle's exterior, making loud noises. She was checking whether there were any zombies inside the pharmacy. After knocking several times, there was no response from inside the pharmacy. Instead, She attracted the zombies from nearby stores. They came to the RV and clawed at it repeatedly. Unfortunately, the RV was pressed tightly against the pharmacy door, forming a sealed space. The zombies outside could not squeeze in and grew frantic, making hoarse guttural noises. Holding the shovel, Meng Sherwan opened the RV's side door. She did not let down her guard, and slowly walked into the pharmacy. After surveying the entire store and confirming that there were no zombies, she finally relaxed. First, she took the medicines for heatstroke and frostbite from the shelves, followed by various remedies for bruises and injuries, as well as cold and fever medicines. These would all be commonly used medicines in the future. She piled all the medicines on the floor, sat down wherever she was, and began removing the packaging. Nowadays, all kinds of products came excessively packaged, taking up an absurd amount of space. Tashwa poked its head out of the RV. Seeing Meng Sherwan busy, it jumped over to her and leaped around, tearing at the discarded boxes. Meng Sherwan could not resist stroking its swishing tail and laughed. "Baby, how can you be so cute?" Tashwa was a fluffy black and white cat, chubby and resembling Chief Black Cat, with round, adorably cute eyes. It blinked, rubbed against Meng Sherwan's arm, and continued playing with its cardboard boxes. After removing the packaging, Meng Sherwan carried 2 shopping baskets filled with medicine back toward the RV. "Tashwa, come back. The outside world is very dangerous, so you have to stay close to me, okay?" Tashwa tilted its head as though it understood. Then it scampered after Meng Sherwan and jumped into the RV. Meng Sherwan put the medicines into her storage space, including the supplies she had stored earlier. They took up only half the available room. 1 cubic meter was not a small amount of space. Packed tightly, it could hold quite a lot. She made several trips back and forth before filling the 1 cubic space and the cabinet. The cabinet held gauze, disinfectant with long shelf lives, medicinal liquor, medicated plasters, and similar items. The medicines meant for consumption were all stored in the fresh preservation space. When she checked the time, she realized that she had been busy for 2 hours. She did not find the process boring at all. Instead, she was exceptionally motivated. Next to the pharmacy was a high-end outdoor supplies store. It specialized in sports equipment for activities such as exploration and hiking. Meng Sherwan got back into the vehicle and crushed all the zombies surrounding it. She parked the RV in front of the outdoor supplies store, and discovered that the rolling shutter had been locked from the inside. There were very likely survivors inside. She did not want to miss any opportunity to collect equipment, so she got out, walked to the shutter, and pounded on it several times. There was no response from inside, which indicated that someone was there. Meng Sherwan called out, "Open the door. I'm going to take some supplies. In return, I'll give you a few tips for staying alive." Chapter 7. Nothing but a desire for the crystal cores. Wei Yi, hiding inside, was frantic. The loud pounding on the door had nearly scared him to death. He had climbed snow-capped mountains, trekked through rainforests, and undertaken many challenges that pushed the limits of human life, but he had never felt fear like this. Zombies were simply too terrifying. Even the slightest scratch, or accidentally swallowing the tiniest amount of zombie blood or flesh, carried the risk of infection. Although his physical fitness meant he could handle 2 or 3 zombies without a problem, he still didn't dare approach them lightly. What was more, the zombie outbreak was likely widespread. Even if he managed to escape, where could he go? Where would there be a safe place? Just as he was terrified and lost, the woman outside said she could tell him how to survive. For Wei Yi, who had no idea how to respond to the situation, this was important. He did not open the door immediately. Through the rolling shutter, he asked what advice. Meng Sherwan had no patience. "Open the door." Wei Yi thought for a moment before finally deciding to open it. Since the person could stand outside the store and speak, it meant that it was currently safe outside. He pulled up the rolling shutter. Standing before him was a beautiful young woman wearing athletic clothes, though her expression was cold and unapproachable. Behind her was a large pink motorhome, which happened to block the entrance, keeping the zombies outside and creating an enclosed safe zone. Wei Yi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. There were no zombies, so he was safe for the moment. Meng Sherwan strode into the store and picked out the things she needed. First piece of advice: Don't open the door to just anyone. Every person you let in could become the reason you die. Wei Yi. She was the one who had told him to open the door. And she was also the one telling him not to let people in so casually. He stood blankly at the entrance, his expression complex and bewildered. Meng Sherwan glanced at him. He was a vigorous-looking man, very muscular and quite tall. Around 30 years old. The signs of training were evident all over him. He probably worked out regularly. Secretly remaining on guard, Meng Sherwan asked, "Do you have cold weather clothing?" Wei Yi walked into the store, pulled a set of heavy cold weather gear from the shelves, and handed it to Meng Sherwan. Meng Sherwan said coldly, "Put it on the floor and step back." She had to maintain an absolutely safe distance from the man in case he harbored ulterior motives, leaving herself room to fight back. Wei Yi's face was full of question marks. Was he really that frightening? Why was this young woman looking at him, as if he were a criminal? He placed the cold weather gear on the floor and muttered as he stepped back, "This stuff is really expensive." Meng Sherwan picked it up and examined it. She recognized both the brand and the model. It would be suitable for climbing Mount Everest, and could withstand extreme cold. "Get another set." "How much are they?" "I'll transfer the money to you later." Meng Sherwan sighed inwardly. A large portion of humanity still had not realized how serious the situation was. They believed someone would soon come to eliminate the zombies and restore the old order. And they still held hope for the future. At least for now, humanity had not yet been driven insane by the disaster. The kindness in people's hearts remained. Otherwise, the first thing this man would have considered would have been how to take her motorhome, not how much a set of cold weather clothing cost. Wei Yi pulled out another set of cold weather gear and placed it on the floor. Under Meng Sherwan's wary gaze, he then moved aside, sat down in a chair, and quietly watched her bustle around. "What's the second piece of advice?" Meng Sherwan placed the 2 sets of cold weather gear in the space in front of the passenger seat, closed the door, and returned to continue gathering supplies. "Second piece of advice. Find a place with plenty of food, stay there, and wait for rescue. Villefronet. This disaster is going to last a long time, isn't it?" He had seen some reports online saying that zombies had erupted all over the country, following the usual pattern in apocalypse novels, and taking reality into account. This disaster might never truly end. Meng Sherwan did not answer. She took more than a dozen full-body one-piece hiking rain suits and put them in the small storage compartment beside the chassis. She also took more than a dozen pairs of comfortable hiking shoes and stuffed them into the shoe cabinet. Then she gathered some outdoor jackets, sports bras, backpacks, windproof pants, gloves, socks, hats, scarves, and other everyday essentials, cramming them into the storage cabinet beneath the Uship sofa. She stopped only after the space beneath the sofa was completely full. When she got out of the RV, she saw that the man was still sitting obediently in the chair, staring thoughtfully at her as she busied herself. She found it somewhat amusing and actually laughed out loud. How long had it been since she had seen someone so simple? There was no malice or scheming in his eyes, only pure confusion and unease. Meng Sherwan took out her phone and transferred him 100,000 yuan. Third piece of advice: don't trust anyone, and don't show kindness to anyone. When necessary, abandoning your moral principles is the best way to survive. Wei Yi pondered her words, his gaze falling on the RV at the entrance. Meng Sherwan climbed into the RV, shut the door and drove away. As dusk fell, she still had to go to the supermarket to stock up on supplies. Many foods would no longer be fresh by tomorrow. Meng Sherwan parked the RV at the entrance to the supermarket's delivery and unloading passage. She returned to the RV, picked up an outdoor utility shovel, and pushed open the side door. Ta Shui raised its tail and followed her down from the RV step by step. Meng Sherwan picked up the cat and put it back inside the RV, stroking its fluffy head a couple of times as she did so. "It's dangerous outside. Be good and wait for me here." Ta Shui blinked its big eyes, sat on the ground, and tilted its little head as it watched her close the RV door. The passage was open, and a truck carrying instant noodles, snacks, and similar goods was parked beside it. Boxes of fruit were stacked along both sides of the passage, likely not yet moved into the warehouse. Meng Sherwan tightened her grip on the shovel and walked inside, staying alert to her surroundings in case a zombie lunged at her from a corner. She had a clear target this time: meat, staple foods, seasonings, and purified water. Given the limited space, the foods she most needed to stockpile were filling and long-lasting. She wanted snacks and fruit too, but they were far less important than meat and staple foods. Roar. Just as she was about to enter the supermarket, a roar came from the corner ahead. A male zombie wearing a supermarket uniform, with a chunk of flesh missing from his neck, lunged at her. Meng Sherwan reacted swiftly, dodging the zombie's attack sideways before swinging the shovel with all her strength. The sharp edge of the shovel carved a deep hole into the zombie's head. The zombie crashed heavily to the ground and lay motionless. She glanced at it. There was no crystal core. The commotion attracted the attention of the other zombies inside the supermarket. Dozens of zombies began converging on her position. Meng Sherwan gripped the shovel, her eyes shining not with fear of the zombies, but with longing for crystal cores. If she got lucky enough to find 2 more crystal cores, that would be ideal. She surveyed the area, walked to a shelf, and began pulling it toward the entrance of the passage. She blocked off both sides of the passage, leaving only a gap wide enough for one person. Then she could kill the zombies one by one as they squeezed through. It was much easier and safer than dealing with dozens of zombies at once. Meng Sherwan pulled, but the shelf did not budge. It was stocked with alcohol and beverages, making it extremely heavy. "Let me help you, sis." A girl suddenly appeared from somewhere, and came over to Meng Sherwan's side to help pull the shelf. Chapter 8. It's the apocalypse who still cares about reason? Meng Sherwan glanced at her. It was the young female server who had helped load things into her RV that morning. "I'm not taking you with me." She forcefully shook the shelving unit, sending the drinks on it tumbling haphazardly onto the floor. Meng Sherwan gripped the shelving unit with both hands, and moved it toward the entrance of the aisle. After 3 years of the apocalypse, she had seen all kinds of human nature. She could see through what this young girl was thinking at a glance. Lin Qian hesitated for a moment. The smile disappeared from her face and tears filled her eyes, but she continued helping Meng Sherwan pull the shelving unit. She knew Meng Sherwan had an RV. She had ventured out despite the danger simply to leave a good impression, and persuade Meng Sherwan to take her along. Who would have thought that before she had even done anything, the other woman would see right through her and reject her so decisively? Seeing the zombies inside the supermarket drawing closer and closer, charging toward them with their teeth bared and claws extended, Lin Qian was terrified, helpless, and at a loss. All she could do was help Meng Sherwan, hoping she would change her mind. Together, they pulled 2 or 3 shelving units over, blocking the passage and leaving only a gap about a meter wide. Dozens of zombies charged through, their necks craned forward, nearly knocking the shelving units over. The 2 living bodies were simply too tempting, and the zombies fought to squeeze their way outside. Lin Qian retreated 2 steps in fright, pressed herself tightly against the wall, and trembled. Every now and then, she glanced toward the pink RV outside the passage, certain thoughts turning over in her mind. Meng Sherwan guarded the gap. Whenever a zombie squeezed through, she smashed its head with a construction shovel, and checked whether it contained a crystal core. She did not even turn around to look at the girl. In a calm voice, she said, "You won't be able to drive my RV away. There are zombies everywhere outside and nowhere is safe. If you want to survive, find a room, stockpile plenty of food and water, block the door, and stay inside. Don't open the door no matter who calls out. Wait for the rescue team." Watching Meng Sherwan hack through the zombies as easily as if she were cutting watermelons, Lin Qian finally abandoned the idea of stealing the RV and leaving. It wasn't that she didn't want to. She simply didn't know how to drive a truck. Even sitting in the driver's seat, she wouldn't be able to drive it away. "Are you not afraid?" Everyone else was screaming, terrified, and even losing their lives. Yet this girl, who was only a little older than Lin Qian, remained frighteningly calm when facing the zombies. Her movements were swift, ruthless, and precise, and her expression remained utterly unmoved, as though she were chopping wood. Several zombie corpses had already piled up in front of Meng Sherwan. Using the construction shovel, she picked a clear crystal core out of a zombie's head, and her mood improved. She smiled and said, "Being afraid is useless. If you calm down and look for the zombies' weaknesses, you'll live a little longer. Lin Qian glanced at the pile of zombies in front of Meng Shihan. Their skulls split open. White brain matter and blood splattered everywhere. The sight was so bloody that it made her nauseous. Just that morning, they had all been living human beings, chatting and greeting one another. Now they had become mangled corpses. Then Lin Qian looked at Meng Shihan standing nearby, covered in bloodstains yet smiling, and found the scene terrifying and horrifying. At that moment, she had only one thought. Don't provoke this woman, or there would be no good ending. Taking Meng Shihan's advice, she found a small office inside the supermarket. While the zombies were distracted by Meng Shihan, she began carrying supplies inside. Water and food, the more she moved, the better. She was somewhat clever. Instead of hiding in the warehouse, she chose a small office. Everyone knew the warehouse contained supplies. Sooner or later, many people would target it, making it unsafe to hide there. Meng Shihan dealt with all the zombies surrounding her, but found only one crystal core. The gap was blocked by zombie corpses. She pushed the shelving unit aside at the edge and walked into the supermarket. She slowed her pace, looked around the supermarket, and immediately chopped down the few zombies she encountered wandering alone. She then locked all the supermarket's other entrances and exits to prevent zombies from elsewhere from breaking in. After taking care of that, she went to the supermarket seafood section, turned on the faucet, washed the blood off herself, and began gathering supplies. She pulled 2 shopping carts and first swept through the prepared food section. Orleans roast chicken, roast duck, fried chicken, braised meat, chicken feet, crayfish, all kinds of braised delicacies, they were all her favorites. The packaging took up too much space, so she put everything into food storage bags, one portion at a time, and placed them in the carts. After filling both carts, Meng Shihan dragged them back to the RV. As soon as she entered the passageway, she saw several men wearing supermarket uniforms prying at the side door of her RV. Tashue stood on the shoe cabinet, baring her teeth and bristling at them through the vehicle's door window. One of the men had bent the wrench in his hands, yet the RV door remained completely unmoved. Furious, he slammed the door handle several times, but didn't even manage to chip the paint. What is this RV made of? Is it really that sturdy? Another man was close to breaking down. Even if it were steel, there should be a few dents. This RV is completely unharmed. I've smashed the windows several times, but there isn't even a mark.
Dont-elle me der bulletproof windows?
That just proves this RV is safe. If we can get our hands on it. It has everything inside. Then we won't have to worry about zombies suddenly jumping out and killing us anymore. After several men fiddled with it for a long time without managing to open the RV door, they grew increasingly irritated. Oh, go find a metal cutter. I refuse to believe this thing is impossible to break. He turned around and saw a young woman standing not far away, coldly staring at them as she dragged 2 shopping carts. The man jumped and took 2 steps back as he sized up Meng Shihan. He asked, "You're the owner of this vehicle? It's dangerous for a young girl like you to be out here alone. Why don't you take us with you? There's strength in numbers. We'll protect you. As long as you take us somewhere safe, we can pay you." The other men turned around. When they saw that Meng Shihan was just a young woman, they relaxed slightly. Their eyes revealed their confidence that victory was already within their grasp. The RV had given them the courage to act so boldly. Meng Shihan sneered. "Leave my RV immediately, or suffer the consequences." One of the men, wearing a security uniform, looked at the shopping carts behind Meng Shihan. "Did you pay for those things? You stole goods from the supermarket. I suspect there's stolen property in your RV as well. You'd better open the door right now and let us inspect it." The man smiled smugly, apparently thinking he had seized Meng Shihan's weak spot. As long as he tricked this young woman into opening the door, the RV and all the supplies would be theirs. A mocking look flashed through Meng Shihan's eyes. They were truly foolish and greedy. "Oh, count to 3. Move 10 paces away from the RV. The man found it amusing and paid no attention to her words. "Stop wasting time and open the door so we can inspect it." 2. "Who are you trying to scare? You're just a young girl, and you think you can 3. Meng Shihan suddenly sprang into motion. The next second, she was already upon the security guard. the sharp edge of her shovel slicing open his throat. Blood gushed out in torrents. Before he hit the ground, disbelief filled the man's eyes. He died with his eyes wide open. The other men were so frightened by the sight that they all backed away. She killed someone. How dare she kill someone? The way they looked at Meng Sherwan was as if they were staring at a demon. How could anyone kill without batting an eye, without even flushing or changing expression? This woman was terrifying. Meng Sherwan sneered. It's the apocalypse already. Who's going to reason with you? If you don't have what it takes, don't imitate others by robbing people here. You're just embarrassing yourselves. Chapter 9. Such a good chance to live. Yet they insisted on seeking death. These people were truly lucky. She had cleared out the zombies surrounding the area. And the zombies inside the supermarket had been completely dealt with as well. All the other entrances and exits had been sealed off. At present, the supermarket was absolutely safe. Moreover, there was no shortage of food inside. All they had to do was stay put and wait for the rescue team to find them and take them to a base. They could simply keep their heads down and survive without having to risk their lives fighting zombies. What a good chance to live, yet they had insisted on jumping in front of her to seek death. Meng Sherwan's gaze fell on the other men. The men shuddered in fear, turned around, and ran into the supermarket. They did want the motorhome, but they wanted to stay alive even more. There was also a large truck nearby. The conditions were worse, but at least they wouldn't have to risk their lives fighting this ruthless woman. How could such a delicate-looking young girl be so merciless? She was practically a living king of hell. After they had run off, Meng Sherwan opened the door, carried the 2 shopping carts into the motorhome's hallway, and closed the door again. Taishua jumped into her arms, looking aggrieved, and rubbed its head back and forth against her. Holding it, Meng Sherwan opened a food storage bag, tore off a large drumstick from the roast chicken, and placed it in Taishua's little bowl. Eat up. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. After catching the scent, Taishua jumped onto the cupboard and began eating in small bites. Meng Sherwan opened the refrigerator compartment and put all the fruits and vegetables stacked inside into her expanded space. Then she placed the items from the shopping carts into the refrigerator compartment and used her thoughts to push them into the expanded space. With the 2 methods working together, the items were loaded quickly. After putting away everything from both shopping carts, Meng Sherwan discovered that they had filled only a corner of 1 cubic meter. 1 cubic meter could hold far more than she had imagined. A supermarket shopping cart generally held less than 150 liters. It would take 5 or 6 completely full carts to fill 1 cubic meter. Meng Sherwan felt that making trip after trip was too slow. She opened the door, placed the shopping carts outside, and glanced toward the manual forklift used to unload goods in the passageway. If she put a wooden board on the forklift, it could carry a huge amount of stuff. As she got out of the motorhome, she felt the hem of her clothes being tugged. She turned around and saw Taishua standing on the cupboard, biting her clothes and refusing to let her leave. Meng Sherwan smiled. I'm going to collect supplies. That's the only way we'll be able to live better in the future. Taishua continued biting her clothes and wouldn't let go. You want to come with me? Taishua blinked, released her clothes, and jumped onto Meng Sherwan's shoulder, settling itself firmly in place. Meng Sherwan laughed. You clever little thing. Taking Taishua with her, she found some plastic turnover crates in the passageway, stacked them on the forklift's wooden board, and returned to the supermarket. When the people hiding inside the supermarket saw her, they quickly pulled their heads back. Clearly, the fact that she had killed someone earlier had already spread among the survivors in the supermarket. Meng Sherwan couldn't be bothered with them and continued stocking up on supplies. She went to the prepared food section again, packing up all kinds of meat and braised dishes, along with the cold dishes and pickles. She hadn't eaten anything decent in the several years since the apocalypse began, and now she wanted strong, savory flavors. She also packed up all the fried dough sticks, jianbing, meat pies, sushi, zongzi, and other foods from the neighboring stalls. She removed the sushi boxes and poured everything into food storage bags. It didn't matter if they looked a little worse. As long as it saved space, she could store more. Taishua crouched obediently in one of the crates on the forklift, not running around at all. After finishing with those items, Meng Sherwan headed to the seasoning section. When she passed the dessert section, she stopped, her expression conflicted. Reason told her to stock up on rice, flour, cooking oil, meat, and other staples. But 3 years of hardship in the apocalypse told her that if she had the means, she should eat something good. These cakes will spoil after a while, and I won't be able to eat them this fresh then. Meng Sherwan was defeated by the delicious food. She decisively turned around and began packing up the desserts. The exquisite, beautiful cakes and bread were incredibly tempting just to look at. She moved everything onto the pallet truck. Take it all, everything. After loading the cakes, she loaded cookies and candies. Once she had swept through the dessert section, she pulled the pallet truck back to the RV. 2 zombies had appeared beside the security guard's corpse, gnawing hungrily at his entrails. They must have been drawn by the smell of blood. Hearing the commotion, the zombies raised their heads, opened their bloody mouths, and lunged at Meng Sherwan. Meng Sherwan picked up the spade lying in the basket and split open the 2 zombies' skulls, dispatching them cleanly and efficiently. 3 or 5 zombies posed no threat to her. The movements involved in hacking down zombies were already etched into her bones. Meng Sherwan moved the basket from the pallet truck into the RV's corridor, closed the door, and continued stuffing things into the refrigerator. It would be great if I had a spatial ability. Then I could put everything directly into my space instead of having to carry it into the RV, open the refrigerator, and only then store it in the space. She was merely sighing wistfully. Compared with her previous life, she was already extremely lucky now. Once she filled her space, she would have enough food to last several years and would never again have to live in fear of starving to death at any moment. She stuffed all the prepared food inside, filling 1 cubic meter. Next came the desserts. Since the cake boxes took up space, Meng Sherwan removed the boxes and put only the cakes into the refrigerator. Then she used her mind to arrange them neatly within the space, ensuring that the cakes remained intact. Whenever there were gaps between the cakes, she filled them with small cookies and candies, making sure to maximize every inch of space. After filling another cubic meter, some cookies and candies still remained. Meng Sherwan placed them by the stairs to eat gradually later. She summoned the RV schematic and used a core she had found in the supermarket earlier to upgrade the space on the 2nd floor. This gave her another cubic meter of storage space. After that, she continued traveling back and forth between the supermarket and the RV. Carry, carry, carry. Stockpile, stockpile, stockpile. Ta Shui followed her around. Though she couldn't help, her main role was simply to keep her company. The survivors inside the supermarket noticed that Meng Sherwan was moving freely through the store without encountering any danger. Since they no longer saw any zombies wandering around, they gradually came out to look for food. They ate while wandering around Meng Sherwan, but none of them dared approach her. They were afraid she might take a single swing of her shovel and knock their heads off. She's been moving things for several hours. Why hasn't she finished yet? Can the RV hold all that? She cleared out the prepared food section, the dessert section, the grain section, the seasoning section, the fresh food section, and the seafood section. I'd say the inside of that RV is packed to the brim. There probably isn't even room to stand. Why is she stockpiling so much food? What if it spoils? Is she planning to transport it somewhere? I checked online earlier. Zombies have broken out nationwide, and everywhere is dangerous. This tough woman cleared all the zombies out of the supermarket for us. As long as we guard the doors and hide here, it's relatively safe. The corpse of the last person who had tried to target Meng Sherwan was still lying outside. Besides, based on what they knew about the outside world, even if they drove out, there was nowhere safe to go. As Meng Sherwan continued carrying things back and forth, no one dared provoke her again. After all, the RV was only so large. She couldn't possibly empty the entire supermarket. By the time Meng Sherwan finished working, it was already the early hours of the morning. Looking at the well-stocked RV, she felt an unusual sense of peace and satisfaction. Chapter 10. The world is dangerous, but she is safe. The 1 cubic expanded space on the 2nd floor was packed with an entire 1,600 pounds. Eating 1 pound a day, it would last 1,600 days, or more than 4 years. It was an overwhelming sense of security. The second floor space also held 500 pounds of flour, 50 10-liter drums of cooking oil, and 500 bags of table salt, taking up half the available room. The other half, including the cabinets, was filled with all kinds of seasonings. Meng Sherwan was exceptionally good at organizing things. She removed all unnecessary packaging and left no sizable gaps, packing everything tightly and securely. Even if there was a gap the size of a thumb, she would stuff a red date into it. Besides, she had plenty of time now and could organize everything slowly. A few years into the apocalypse, even a single red date would be extremely precious. The refrigerator's 4 cubic meter expanded space contained 1 cubic meter of cooked food, 1 cubic meter of desserts, 1 cubic meter of various meats, and 1 cubic meter of fish and other aquatic products. 1 cubic meter of meat or seafood weighed roughly 1,900 pounds. Excluding the cooked food and desserts, the remaining 2 cubic meters of meat and seafood totaled nearly 4,000 pounds. She and Takshu would be able to eat well for several years. The 2 cubic meter expanded pure water tank was filled with bottled mineral water. The 1 cubic medicine cabinet was also packed full. Under the ushopped sofa were cat food and various clothes she had taken from the outdoor goods store. The open space beneath the coffee table in the middle of the sofa was stuffed with all kinds of packaged snacks and small drinks. In the empty passenger seat, 2 sets of cold weather clothing were placed below, with several storage boxes stacked on top. They contained daily necessities such as shampoo, shower gel, and laundry detergent. A single bottle of these products could last a long time, so there was no need to stockpile too much when space was limited. Near the rear of the vehicle in the aisle were several cases of drinks, all small sodas Meng Sherwan liked. It was already 1 in the morning. Yet instead of feeling sleepy, she was becoming more excited and more addicted to stockpiling the more she gathered. Meng Sherwan brought over a tall stool and sat in front of the cabinets. The range hood above the cabinets was running. On the induction stove below, a small soup pot was bubbling away with a spicy hot pot broth. Slices of meat and meatballs bobbed up and down inside, looking incredibly tempting. Nearby were leafy vegetables and meat slices for dipping into the hot pot, along with a roast chicken missing 1 leg. There was also a 6-inch fruit cake and a glass filled with a fizzy clear soda, droplets of condensation clinging to its surface. Meng Sherwan had just taken all of these things out of the supermarket. As long as there was food around, she absolutely would not eat her stored supplies. Takshu, let's eat and get some sleep. Tomorrow, we'll keep killing zombies and looking for crystals. There was still plenty more she needed to stockpile. Fruit, vegetables, ice cream. Milk tea, she needed all of it. In extreme heat, eating an ice cream and drinking a cup of iced milk tea would be unbelievably refreshing. The water tank and fuel tank also needed to be as large as possible. Takshu's small cat-shaped food bowl sat nearby, filled to the brim with fish and shrimp. Without even needing Meng Sherwan to say anything, Takshu was already standing on the cabinet and eating with gusto. Looking at her obedient cat and the sumptuous late-night meal before her, with the spicy, savory aroma filling her nose, Meng Sherwan felt an indescribable mix of emotions. She had been busy ever since returning from her rebirth that day. Now that she finally had time to calm down, everything felt strangely dreamlike and wistful. The hunger, brutality, and utterly undignified scenes of the apocalypse were still vivid in her mind. Now possessing enough food to last several years, she was living a life completely different from her previous one. She stuffed a piece of dipped mutton into her mouth, followed it with a sip of iced soda, and let out a deeply satisfied sigh. So refreshing. It's so delicious. In this life, I'm going to keep living like this forever. She drained the small drink in her glass, then reached under the coffee table and pulled out a bottle of green plum wine, pouring it over the crystal-clear ice cubes. The ice cubes clinked against the glass under the impact of the liquid, producing a crisp, pleasant sound. Meng Sherwan took a bite of boiled mutton, a sip of green plum wine, and then another bite of a soft, moist cake. Never before had she felt that happiness could be so simple and pure. Back when she worked out, she had eaten nothing but clean, healthy food. Then, during the 3 years of the apocalypse, she had never again eaten a proper meal. After everything she had gone through to get to this day, She found that nothing felt more real than the delicious food before her at that moment. She did not pick up her phone. In the quiet of the late night, she sat inside the RV, bathed in warm yellow light, slowly savoring every bite of food in her mouth. The outside world was dangerous, but she was safe. Only after all the food on the table had entered her stomach, without even a single leaf of vegetables left behind, did Meng Sherwan pat her belly in satisfaction. She washed the dishes and took out the trash. Finally, she took a wonderful hot shower, changed into plush pajamas, and lowered the bed above the ushaped sofa to the height of the coffee table. She climbed into bed and lay down beneath the soft covers. Lifting one corner of the blanket, she called Ta Shui, "Come sleep." Ta Shui jumped up beside her, crawled under the covers, and rested its head on Meng Sherwan's arm. After adjusting its position, it fell into an extremely comfortable sleep. Holding Ta Ju, Meng Sherwan tucked in the edges of the blanket. Xiaoji, Xiaoji, turn off all the lights and turn on the air circulation. The RV's intelligent voice assistant responded, "All right, master. All lights have been turned off, and the air circulation system has been activated." The RV fell into darkness, and the woman and cat slept soundly beneath the soft covers. They slept until noon. Meng Sherwan was awakened by Ta Shui. Ta Shui's large body was sprawled across her chest, pressing so heavily that she could barely breathe. Meng Sherwan dreamed that she was being overwhelmed by zombies, and nearly flipped Ta Shui off her entirely. Only after feeling the soft touch beneath her did she come to her senses. She pushed Ta Shui off her body and asked sleepily, "What are you doing? Let me sleep a little longer." When Ta Shui heard that she still wanted to sleep, it became frantic. It desperately needed to poop, but its owner had not prepared a litter box, leaving the poor cat in agony. Seeing that Meng Sherwan had turned over and was about to fall asleep again, Ta Shui had a sudden inspiration. It pointed its rear at Meng Sherwan's face and let out a foul-smelling fart. "Ah!" A shriek rang out inside the RV, startling the survivors hiding in the supermarket. They thought the ruthless woman had been eaten by zombies. "Ta Shui, what did you eat? Why does your fart stink so much?" After the furious roar that followed, the survivors in the supermarket felt somewhat disappointed. The ruthless woman was not dead, nor had she been eaten by zombies. She had merely been overwhelmed by a cat's foul fart. Meng Sherwan got out of bed, picked up Ta Shui, and rushed into the bathroom, placing it on the toilet. "You won't need a litter box anymore. Learn to use the toilet, it's more convenient." Having just done something wrong, Ta Shui did not dare resist. It clumsily placed its paws on the edge of the toilet, and, under Meng Sherwan's watchful eye, finished pooping before symbolically covering it twice. This is the flush button. You have to press it after you poop. Meng Sherwan took its paw and demonstrated once. Ta Shui tilted its head adorably, though it was impossible to tell whether it had understood. Chapter 11. 800 schemes. Meng Sherwan lifted Taksha down from the toilet, opened a new set of toiletries, and washed her face and brushed her teeth. She tossed yesterday's dirty clothes into the washing machine and dug out a new tracksuit to put on. Finally, she raised the motorhome's lift bed all the way up and tidied everything. "We're going out to find breakfast." Takshu obediently jumped onto Meng Sherwan's shoulder and followed her outside. Meng Sherwan seriously suspected that Takshu only pretended not to understand selectively. When it wanted to listen, it understood perfectly, like now, when they were going outside. When it did not want to listen, it pretended not to understand. Like when she had just tried to teach it how to use the toilet. A cat could have 800 schemes. The snacks and fruit in the passage had all disappeared. Someone must have moved them. Anyone with a brain knew that this disaster could not end easily. With the entire country's production halted, food would become the most precious resource. When Meng Sherwan entered the passage, she found that the entrance to the supermarket had been completely blocked with shelving, wooden boards, and other objects. She laughed in anger. She had cleared out all the zombies inside and outside the supermarket. Now that the threat was gone, these people had instead blocked her outside. What a great plan they had. If she had not cleared out the zombies, with them wandering all over the supermarket, those people would still be hiding in some corner, too afraid to move. They might even have been caught and bitten to death by zombies at any moment. Now that the zombies were gone and everything was safe, they had come out to block the entrance. Were they trying to block the zombies or her? If they were blocking zombies, a few rows of metal shelves would have been enough, and they would have left a small entrance. But this place was blocked 3 layers deep. Clearly, they were blocking her. She turned around and returned to the motorhome, placing Takshu inside. Watch how I deal with them. Stay home and behave, or you might get hurt by accident. Takshu jumped onto the shoe cabinet, its eyes darting around as it prepared to watch the spectacle through the window. Meng Sherwan found an iron bucket and a hose in the shops across the way. She went to the truck, opened the fuel tank, and used the hose to siphon out a full bucket of gasoline. Carrying it over, she poured it directly onto the pile of shelves and wooden boards blocking the passage. She retreated a long distance, then tossed the windproof lighter in her hand over. The flames instantly erupted inside the passage. Meng Sherwan quickly withdrew from the passage and watched the raging fire spread through it. A cold smile curled at the corners of her lips. The apocalypse had already begun, and they were still playing these childish tricks with her. The supermarket was their means of survival, but it was not hers. At that moment, the survivors inside the supermarket were stunned when they saw the flames. What are you standing around for? Put out the fire. The passage is stacked with alcohol. Once it catches fire, none of us will survive. Someone came to their senses and shouted. The other exits of the supermarket were also tightly blocked. Even if they wanted to escape, they might not be able to get out. The dozens of survivors inside immediately panicked and hurried to find firefighting equipment. Fire hoses and extinguishers were all brought out and put to use. The ground at the entrance to the passage was already covered with wine bottles Meng Sherwan had smashed earlier. As the flames spread over them, billowing black smoke surged everywhere. Lin Qian stood in a corner at the edge of the supermarket, watching the people scramble frantically to put out the fire. She cursed inwardly, a bunch of idiots. They knew that woman was not to be trifled with, so why provoke her? She only has one motorhome, how much could she possibly carry away? They really brought this trouble on themselves. She was now extremely grateful that she had not previously harbored any malicious intentions toward Meng Sherwan. Otherwise, she would not even have known how she died. That woman was truly ruthless. A supermarket this large, with so many supplies, she set it on fire without a second thought. Fortunately, the supermarket had comprehensive fire safety measures, and many of the survivors were employees who knew how to use them skillfully. They extinguished the fire in time, putting it out before the flames could spread throughout the beverages section. A group of people sat on the floor, covered in soot and gasping for breath. Their faces were blackened with smoke, and black water stains from the frantic firefighting efforts were splattered all over the floor. Someone complained indignantly, I said last night, don't provoke that woman. She's a murderer who kills without batting an eye. This supermarket is huge, so what if she carried some of the stuff away? It wouldn't affect us. She even helped us clear out the zombies nearby. Without her, would we be living this easily? You insisted on blocking her outside. Do you really think she's the kind of person who would just let it go? Everyone had taken part in blocking the passage yesterday. Now that they had failed to achieve their goal, and had instead provoked the other party, they began shifting the blame. A middle-aged man at the head of the group barked, Shut up. You all know she's a murderer. If she dared to kill old Wang, she'll dare to kill us. What if she suddenly loses her mind and cuts us all down? You'll regret it then. I agree. That woman is impossible to deal with, ruthless and vicious. Would be safer if we drove her away. They had never expected that, after the zombie apocalypse arrived, what terrified them most would not be the zombies. It would be a young woman. They seemed to have forgotten that the reason no zombies had come to threaten their lives was also because of that young woman. The fire went out, and the thick smoke dispersed. Most of the debris piled at the entrance to the passage had been burned away. Through the gaps between the charred wooden boards and metal racks, they could see someone standing on the other side. She was wearing a black one-piece rain suit that covered her completely. Even her head was enclosed by the hood, and her features were obscured beneath its brim. A large, plump cat crouched on her shoulder, while she gripped an outdoor utility shovel in her hand. They were very familiar with that shovel. It had chopped through zombie skulls, and had also slit old Wang's throat. We're done for. We really provoked that ruthless woman. What's there to be afraid of? There are so many of us. Could we really lose to one woman? Although they said this, everyone continued watching Meng Shuan's figure warily. She slowly raised her head. Her eyes were terrifyingly cold, like those of a merciless beast preparing to hunt its prey. A cleaning lady was so frightened that even her voice trembled. What are those horror movies on TV supposed to be? This is a real horror movie. It's terrifying. Can human eyes really show that kind of emotion? Even a man-eating beast wouldn't have eyes that cold. As they watched in terror, Meng Shuan raised the utility shovel in her hand and brought it crashing down on the charred debris. The wooden boards and shelving, weakened by the intense heat, splintered easily beneath her blow, and she hacked a large hole through them. Overwhelmed by the force of Meng Shuan's presence, Zhang Chang panicked and shouted, "Everyone, attack together! Grab that woman! Grab her!" Dozens of survivors charged forward all at once. Meow. Ta Shui bared its teeth and lunged into the crowd. It swiped left and bit right, tearing through them with ease. In an instant, bloody claw marks appeared on the faces and heads of several people. Meng Shuan charged forward at astonishing speed, swinging the utility shovel in her hands. The survivors did not even see her make a move before the sharp shovel was already in front of them, smashing into their heads and bodies. A chorus of screams erupted. In the space of only a few moments, all dozens of people had been knocked to the ground by Meng Shuan, wailing in pain. Not one of them was still standing and capable of fighting. Meng Shuan crouched beside Zhang Chang, the utility shovel propped against the ground in her hand. With a smile that did not reach her eyes, she said, "Didn't you just say you were going to grab me? What were you planning to do after grabbing me? Imprison me? Or beat me to death?" Her eyes were full of contempt, as though she were looking at a complete fool. After years of working out, she had explosively powerful muscle definition beneath her slender frame. On top of that, during the 3 years of the apocalypse, she had used the crystal cores she risked her life to find to train for 2 months under a retired soldier, learning lethal techniques. After repeatedly fighting and struggling on the line between life and death, she had honed those techniques with her very life. What did these people possibly have that could let them fight her? Chapter 12. You might as well kill me. These people could have stayed safely in the supermarket and lived well, but instead they just had to provoke her. They were simply both stupid and malicious. In the apocalypse, strength in numbers was not a popular concept. If you provoke someone you shouldn't have, no matter how many of you came, you would still end up dead. Only by keeping a low profile could one survive for long. Zhang Chang's face had been raked by Ta Shui, leaving several long bloody scratches from his temple to the corner of his mouth. His flesh was torn open and bleeding. The other half of his face had been smashed by Meng Shivan with a work shovel, swelling into half a pig's head. Lying on the ground, he was dizzy, nauseated, and unable to get up. Zhang Chang strongly suspected that he had suffered a concussion. Faced with Meng Shuan's cold gaze and interrogation, intense fear rose in his heart. This woman really would kill him. Zhang Chang shrank backward. "No. You didn't. I was wrong. I shouldn't have blocked you outside. I only wanted you to go somewhere else. I never intended to hurt you. Please let me go. I really know I was wrong." Meng Shuan did not believe a word he said. They had already banded together to make things difficult for her, when supplies were plentiful and it was safe. Once food and clothing became scarce, they would definitely not be good people. She stood up and found a rope, then tied Zhang Chang's hands and feet. Grabbing him by the collar at the back of his neck, she dragged him toward the other side of the supermarket. Zhang Chang was dragged along the floor, screaming in terror. "What are you doing? Where are you taking me? You can't kill me. Killing someone means paying with your life." Ta Shui followed them. Annoyed by his shouting, it jumped onto Zhang Chang's chest. Every time he screamed, Ta Shui swiped at his mouth with a claw. Its sharp claws sliced open the corners of his mouth, frightening Zhang Chang into silence. Lin Qian, who had been hiding in a corner and observing the situation, watched this scene with a pounding heart. She was even more grateful that she had not provoked Meng Shuan. Her combat ability was unbelievably powerful, simply terrifying. She glanced at the people Meng Sherwan had beaten to the ground, and who were now pretending to be dead, then silently retreated. Following Meng Sherwan's earlier advice, she returned to the small office where she was hiding and continued stockpiling supplies. Meng Sherwan dragged Zhang Chang to the other side of the supermarket. There was an escalator here leading to the second floor. When Meng Sherwan had first arrived, she had used cabinets to block it off temporarily. Now several layers of shelves had been added outside the cabinets. Those people must have reinforced it further. She tied Zhang Chang to a shelf, positioning him directly opposite the stairway entrance. An extremely ominous premonition rose in Zhang Chang's heart. He cried out in terror. "What are you doing? What are you going to do? Let me go." Meng Sherwan did not answer. She turned around to look for tools. Ta Shui wagged its tail, jumped onto Meng Sherwan's shoulder and followed her. The dozens of people who had been pretending to be dead at the passageway entrance now cursed as they struggled to their feet, covering their injured areas. That woman can really fight. There are so many of us, yet we still couldn't beat her. She took Zhang Chang away. Do you think she'll kill him? What do we do now? Should we go save old Zhang? The supermarket lights suddenly malfunctioned and flickered several times. When they came back on, that deadly black shadow was standing not far away, watching them. Everyone flinched in fright and hurriedly backed away, afraid that if they got too close this time, they would not merely be beaten, they would lose their lives. Meng Sherwan's gaze made their backs prickle with cold. Someone forced himself to say, "The fire affected the wiring. Oh, go see what went wrong. Oh, go look for some medicine. It'll be troublesome if our wounds become infected." They tried to find excuses to escape Meng Sherwan's deadly stare. At that moment, her voice rang out coldly. "If you don't want to die, don't appear in front of me again." Everyone scattered like startled birds and beasts in an instant, as if they had activated sprint. Compared with their own lives, what did Zhang Chang's life matter? Meng Sherwan pushed the shopping cart to the tool room, then wandered around the supermarket once more. When she reappeared at the stairwell, the shopping cart was filled to the brim, tied up securely. Zhang Chang was on the verge of tears. "What exactly are you trying to do? Can't you just tell me? You're scaring me." Knowing whether he was going to die or live would at least have given him some peace of mind. It was this uncertainty whether he would die or survive that was truly terrifying. Meng Sherwan still ignored him. Looking around, she spotted a milk tea shop more than 10 meters from the stairwell. She pushed the shopping cart over, took out an electric hot plate, and placed it on the counter, then took out a divided hot pot. She poured mineral water into it, followed by hot pot base, chunks of pork ribs, half a chicken, meatballs. She turned on the heat and let everything cook, then took out the vegetables, sliced meat, fruit, small bottles of beer, and hot pot noodles she had collected, placing them on the counter. Straining his neck, Zhang Chang watched Meng Sherwan busy herself cooking hot pot. His terrified heart trembled violently. "Sis, I'll call you sis, okay? What exactly are you planning to do by tying me up here? You're not actually planning to invite me to eat hot pot and drink milk tea, are you?" He soon found out what Meng Sherwan intended to do. After putting the hot pot on to cook, Meng Sherwan pushed the cart over to Zhang Chang and took out an oversized helmet, fastening it over his head. Then she picked up a small reciprocating saw from the cart. Zhang Chang recognized the power saw. It was specially designed for cutting metal. There were also 2 chainsaws in the cart, which would be very useful for cutting wood and wooden boards. His entire body began trembling uncontrollably. As Meng Sherwan pulled out a power strip, he pressed her. "Sis, you're not planning to dismember me, are you? It hasn't come to that, has it? I only blocked you outside. That's not a death sentence. Besides, so many people blocked you out there. Why are you sawing through only me?" Meng Sherwan silently rolled her eyes. Now he was scared. Why hadn't he thought of that earlier? Carrying the power saw, she walked over to the shelving and cabinets blocking the escalator entrance and got to work. The sound of the teeth scraping across metal was sharp and grating, maddening to hear. Zhang Chang seemed to realize what Meng Sherwan was planning and completely lost it. "Sis saw me instead. Seriously, just kill me. Stop torturing me." With all this noise, the zombies upstairs will definitely hear it. Once they smash through the cabinets, they'll be bitten to death by zombies. You might as well kill me directly. Taksha leaped onto the shelving unit and thumped Zhang Chang's helmet twice with her paws, making him quiet down. Did you need to teach my human how to do things? Meng Sherwan cut a hole through the shelves and cabinets, just large enough for one person to pass through. By the time she broke through the last layer of cabinets, the escalator was already packed with zombies. All drawn by the tremendous commotion. Meng Sherwan hurriedly retreated, took the larger chainsaw, positioned it at a height of 1.5 meters, and secured it tightly to the rack with rope. A zombie charged through the opening. As it passed the chainsaw, its entire head was sawed off. Blood gushed out, splattering across Zhang Chang's helmet and veiling his vision in red. Chapter 13. Brutal, absolutely brutal. He knew it would turn out this way. This ruthless woman wanted him to be the carrot dangling in front of a mule. Zombies could smell fresh blood. And they would keep coming, one after another. The zombies in front had their heads sliced off by the chainsaw and fell down. The zombies behind them continued charging forward, only to have their heads sliced off by the chainsaw as well. They came one after another to throw their lives away. Zombies had no intelligence. They could only smell the tempting scent of fresh flesh ahead and charge forward relentlessly. If they couldn't get through, they simply forced their way in. Meng Sherwan tied another chainsaw 1 meter from the opening, in case any child-sized zombies secretly slipped inside. She then found several cabinets nearby, and pushed them over to reinforce the surrounding barriers. A small trap for killing zombies was complete. Even a few simple traps could make the zombies rush forward one after another, making killing them much easier. These were all lessons she had learned in her previous life. From then on, all she had to do was clear away the dead zombies blocking the opening every so often. Meng Sherwan cheerfully called to Ta Shui, "Come on, let's go eat hot pot." Ta Shui jumped down and followed Meng Sherwan away. Zhang Chang was so terrified that his soul nearly flew out of his body. He wailed, "Kill me. Just kill me. I'm begging you. I don't want to be eaten by zombies." Earlier, he had watched helplessly as one of his colleagues died in a zombie's jaws. A living person had been disemboweled by the zombie, his organs torn out and chewed. He had been conscious enough to watch his own intestines being eaten and swallowed by the zombie. It was horrifying. That kind of death was truly terrifying. He didn't want to die that way. If even one zombie was smart enough to evade the chainsaws and crawl over, he would be the first one it ate. The more Zhang Chang thought about it, the more desperately he screamed. His terrified cries echoed throughout the supermarket, attracting other survivors, who ran over and hid behind the shelves to peek at what was happening. The people, whose faces had already been turned pale by Meng Sherwan's beating, now looked even paler. Brutal. She's truly too brutal. I thought killing Old Wong was ruthless enough, but after seeing this, I suddenly feel that Old Wong had a very peaceful death at her hands. Zhang Chang is screaming like a pig being slaughtered. I think his body is still alive, but his soul is already completely dead. I finally understand now. Would rather go outside and fight the zombies than provoke this ruthless woman. The two chainsaws buzzed loudly. The zombies upstairs heard the noise and began converging on the area. The escalator was still running, and the opening Meng Sherwan had made faced the upward escalator. For the zombies to come down, they first had to outrun the moving escalator before they could reach the first floor, pass through the opening, and crash into the chainsaws. If a zombie stopped on the escalator or moved too slowly, the upward escalator would carry it back to the second floor. That way, they wouldn't pile up on the first floor and knock down the cabinets, shelves, and other obstacles blocking the escalator entrance. Zhang Chang, the carrot dangling in front of them, along with the noise of the chainsaws, could keep luring the zombies down again and again. Some of the more rational people, after enduring the impact of the bloody scene and understanding how the trap worked, couldn't help exclaiming that it was genius. She's not only ruthless but clever too. While we were scared out of our wits by the zombies, she was able to calmly identify their weakness and create such an ingenious trap. A genius. Her combat skills are incredible, and her mental fortitude is this strong. Even her brains work so well. How are ordinary people supposed to survive? Everyone watched in awe, genuinely shocked by Meng Sherwan's handiwork. Their eyes all turned toward where Meng Sherwan was, only to see her enthusiastically devouring hot pot. When she was enjoying herself, She even stood up and made herself a fresh kumquat lemon tea in the shop. Everyone. This big shot style is really hard to figure out. Meng Sherwan was quite good at making milk tea. When she was in college, she would sometimes go out to experience life. And her favorite place to visit was a milk tea shop. She felt that milk tea shops were places filled with the sweetness of youth. Even though she rarely ate such high-calorie foods, that didn't affect her appreciation of sweet youth. During the 3 years of the apocalypse, whenever hunger made her stomach cramp, leaving her weak and in unbearable pain, every sweet and beautiful drink she made with her own hands became her greatest source of spiritual nourishment. Controlling her diet now and eating healthy, low-carb protein? That was out of the question. When it came to hot pot, she wanted the most numbing and spicy broth. When it came to milk tea, she wanted it with all the sugar. Anything that had been severely lacking would be replenished in excess as a form of retaliation. Her appetite was excellent now, and she practically wished she could transform into a gluttonous monster. Of course, she hadn't forgotten her beloved little cat either. She had opened a can of cat food she had taken from the supermarket for it, and it was now eating noisily and happily. It seemed that scratching people had tired it out quite a bit. Meng Sherwan picked up a slice of beef and placed it into the boiling hot pot. After a moment, she took it out, puffed out her cheeks, blew on it twice, and stuffed the entire piece into her mouth. Fresh, fragrant, numbing and spicy, with an intense meaty aroma she really wanted to applaud and praise it. After swallowing it, she took another sip of extra-iced calamandan lemon tea, and felt that this moment was the highlight of her life. Even the screams from not far away and the zombies' hoarse snarling served as the most perfect accompaniment. The only imperfection was that she hadn't finished her hot pot yet, and she had to go clear out the zombies. The zombies were piled up at the entrance of the cave. If they weren't cleared out in time, the other zombies wouldn't be able to come down. Meng Sherwan put her raincoat back on and wrapped herself up tightly. She patted Ta Shui's head. "Stay here. I'll be back soon." Ta Shui let out a meow and continued eating its canned food, though its eyes kept darting toward the slices of beef beside it and the chicken leg in the bowl that hadn't yet been eaten. Meng Sherwan walked to the cave entrance and heard Zhang Chang still shouting in his hoarse voice. She rubbed her eardrums and said impatiently, "Stop shouting." Zhang Chang's terrified shriek came to an abrupt halt. Through the helmet stained with blood, everything in his field of vision was bright red, making the scene even more frightening. He wailed, "Sis, big sis, I'm begging you, let me go. Please stop torturing me, can't take it anymore." Meng Sherwan dragged the zombie, which had been chopped into 3 pieces, toward a corner. "Endure it a little longer. Once the zombies upstairs have been more or less cleared out, I'll let you go." Zhang Chang felt that she looked like some vicious criminal who had killed someone and was burying the body. He grew even more terrified. There are several floors upstairs, and so many people. There must be plenty of zombies too. I'll be scared to death before you finish clearing them out. You might as well kill me now. Meng Sherwan held a round zombie head in her arms and crouched on the ground with a shovel, striking down with a bang and splitting open a hole. When she didn't find what she wanted, she tossed it aside like a rotten watermelon, disappointed, and moved on to the next one. Hearing Zhang Chang's words, she replied indifferently, "How about I let a zombie in right now to bite you to death? Then I'll bring over another fresh person?" Zhang Chang immediately fell silent. He felt that this vicious criminal really would do it. Meng Sherwan paused for a moment as if considering it, then stood up and said helplessly, "Fine. It's no trouble at all. I'll grant your wish and just catch another person. It won't delay anything. After all, I'm a good person." Chapter 14. She must have some misunderstanding about good people. Zhang Chang's eyes widened like copper bells. Good people? She must have some misunderstanding about what a good person was. Although he had been shouting arrogantly just moments ago, when Meng Sherhan really said she was going to kill him, he immediately lost his nerve. He stammered for a long while without managing to say anything meaningful, and the people secretly watching from the sidelines were the first to lose patience. Since Meng Sherhan had told them never to appear in front of her again, they could only hide behind the shelves and shout, "Zhang Chang, hold on. As long as you make it to the end, you'll live. Zhang Chang, don't give up so easily. As long as you survive, I'll cook you a feast every day from now on." Exactly. As long as you stay alive. They'll even feed you every bite right to your mouth. If Zhang Chang died, there was a good chance they would become the next unlucky victims. No matter what, they couldn't let Zhang Chang die. Meng Shirhan was only trying to scare him. She got up and continued dragging out the half-bodied zombies. Zhang Chang became obedient this time, and didn't dare shout for Meng Shirhan to kill him again. He simply closed his eyes, refusing to look at the bloody scene before him. If he took life and death lightly, perhaps he might still survive. Meng Shirhan dragged out more than a dozen zombies, but didn't find a single crystal core. She had no choice but to return to the milk tea shop, rinse the blood off her body with a hose, and continue eating hot pot. Looking at the completely empty box of beef rolls and the empty bowl, she asked uncertainly, "I only ate a few bites of the beef rolls. How did they disappear?" Takshu was lying on the table, its paws wrapped around its round, food-filled belly. It rolled over, and continued pretending to sleep. But its swaying tail gave it away. Meng Shirhan found it amusing and said solemnly, "A sleeping kitten's tail always stands upright. Is Takshu really asleep?" Takshu's swaying tail suddenly stopped, then slipped between its hind legs and silently pointed straight up. But Meng Shirhan tried hard to suppress her laughter. Looks like Takshu really is asleep. She had known for a long time that Takshu could understand human speech. Whenever it didn't want to listen, it would simply tilt its head and pretend to be innocent. What a clever little rascal. Takshu found holding its tail upright too tiring. Before long, it could no longer keep up the act. It pretended to wake up, and when it saw Meng Shirhan return, it happily came over and rubbed against her arm. Meng Shirhan was helpless. "You little drama queen. Do you want more? I'll fish out another piece of chicken for you. But I'll rinse it first. It's too spicy." Takshu wagged its tail. "Eat, eat, eat." At that moment, the survivors on the second floor were somewhat bewildered. They had all heard the screams coming from downstairs, as well as the buzzing sound of a chainsaw. The zombies wandering around the second floor were drawn by the commotion, and began surging toward the first floor. The four men and women hiding inside a claw machine arcade could clearly see through the gaps in the blinds as the zombies in the corridor outside moved toward the escalator. A girl with her hair tied in a bun whispered, "What are they doing downstairs? Even a slaughterhouse wouldn't make that much noise. Are they trying to get themselves killed?" Anyone who had survived until now knew at least a little about zombies. They couldn't get too close to them, and they couldn't make any noise. Otherwise, the zombies would lock onto them. Yet the commotion downstairs was practically drawing every zombie in the entire building over. If that wasn't courting death, what was? The bespectacled young man beside her frowned thoughtfully. "We have to go to the first floor too. The supermarket is downstairs, and it's packed with supplies. While the zombies' attention is distracted, we'll go down from the other side, and observe the situation on the first floor first. If it's safe, we'll sweep through the supermarket, and cover Yuning while she gathers supplies." Another girl beside them said excitedly, "With Yuning, the chosen daughter of heaven, here, we'll be able to live well even in the apocalypse." The girl with the bun, who was known as the chosen daughter of heaven, wore a proud smile. She, Su Yuning, was the chosen one of this world. She had the day off, so Su Yuning invited her best friend to go shopping, bringing their respective boyfriends along. Unexpectedly, a zombie outbreak occurred. Fortunately, there weren't many people in the claw machine arcade. Realizing that something was wrong, they immediately locked the doors and hid inside, narrowly escaping disaster. At the same time, Su Yuning felt as though something had changed in her body. It wasn't until she discovered that she could enter, at any time, a vast white space invisible to everyone else that she finally realized what had happened. Only then did she belatedly understand that this was the special ability described in apocalyptic novels, and a rare spatial ability at that. A zombie outbreak, the awakening of a spatial ability, being in a shopping mall rich in resources, and having her boyfriend and best friend by her side. Wasn't she practically the chosen heroine, the standard protagonist of an apocalyptic novel? Filled with ambition, she felt certain that she would accomplish great things in the apocalypse. When the four of them saw no zombies outside, they quietly opened the door and headed in the opposite direction, going downstairs from the other side. Seeing them sneak away, The other survivors gritted their teeth, opened the door, and followed close behind. They had to get to the first floor. The second floor sold digital products, clothing and the like. There was no food. They had already been hungry for an entire day and night. If they wanted to survive comfortably in the long term. The first thing that came to mind was the well-stocked supermarket downstairs. The zombies had been drawn away by the commotion below, so leaving now was the safest option. Even if the supermarket was packed with zombies pouring downstairs, it wouldn't matter. There was also a nearby snack street. They could hide in any shop and at least avoid starving. Still, they felt that the sound of a chainsaw had been buzzing continuously downstairs, and something seemed off. It didn't sound like an accident. Rather, it seemed as though someone had deliberately created the commotion. They lightened their footsteps as much as possible and went downstairs through another exit, searching for an entrance to the supermarket. Every entrance had been blocked. Looking around the street, they saw scattered zombies lying on the ground with their heads split open. Clearly, someone had already cleared them out. They had assumed the outside would be dangerous, but after walking around, they didn't see a single living zombie. I know where the supermarket's loading entrance is. Let's go there and try our luck. Upon hearing this, everyone seemed to see hope and followed the speaker. A large group of people arrived at the passageway and saw a large pink motorhome. Someone exclaimed, "I remember this vehicle. Yesterday morning, it crushed nearly 1,000 zombies in the plaza. It looked like something straight out of the Rakshasa hells. Its owner must be incredible. The vehicle is parked here, so its owner should be in the supermarket. Let's be careful and assess the situation first. If the supermarket has fallen and there are too many zombies, well run." They carefully avoided the bodies on the ground and moved inside. Su Yuning's boyfriend, Lin Hao, stopped as they passed one of the corpses. Su Yuning, who was following the crowd into the passageway, asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Lin Hao crouched down and examined the body. This man isn't a zombie. His throat was cut with a sharp weapon. Another young man traveling with them, Zhao Yu, widened his eyes. If he hadn't been infected with the zombie virus before he died, he wouldn't have turned into a zombie afterward. That means this man was murdered. There's someone killing people inside the supermarket. It was only the second day of the apocalypse, and murder was still horrifying and terrifying to them. No matter how serious the conflict, no one should be killing anyone. Chapter 15. Fantasies about the end of the world are still far too beautiful. Lin Hao looked at the motorhome beside them. A motorhome that could shove aside concrete bollards and crush nearly 1,000 zombies, yet remain completely undamaged. Beside it lay a man who had been murdered. Lin Hao said cautiously, "The fact that one of us has awakened a spatial ability must never be revealed to anyone else." At present, Su Yunning's spatial ability could only store supplies. It could not be used to attack. As the saying went, possessing a treasured object invites trouble. If people found out, even if they could not seize the spatial ability for themselves, they would kidnap Su Yunning and imprison her by their side. Controlling Su Yunning was equivalent to controlling the space. It was simply too dangerous. This matter had to be kept secret. The corpse before them had already offered a glimpse of the cruelty of the apocalypse. The other three nodded solemnly, all realizing how serious the matter was. They followed the crowd inside and saw two groups confronting each other. One group had swollen and bruised faces, looking utterly miserable. The other group consisted of the people who had come down from the second floor with them. Both sides watched each other warily, and the atmosphere was extremely tense. Zhao Yu was impatient by nature. He shouted at the survivors on the first floor, "It wasn't easy for any of us to survive. You're not going to drive us out of the supermarket, are you?" Once he shouted, the others could not hold back either. "Exactly. This supermarket is so large, and there are enough supplies inside to feed all of us for a very long time. You can't be so selfish. We only want to find some food and fill our stomachs. You wouldn't even deny us that, would you? Besides, there's strength in numbers. If we encounter a zombie attack, we can fight back together, which gives us a better chance of surviving." Those who had gone hungry for an entire day and night were focused solely on getting food. If the other side refused, they would rob them if necessary, but first, they had to fill their stomachs. Lin Hao, meanwhile, scanned the surroundings and assessed the situation. There were traces of fire at the entrance to the passageway. A fire had broken out here. The survivors on the first floor were injured. Who had beaten them? Where was the owner of the motorhome? So many zombies had poured down from the second floor. Yet there were no zombies wandering around the supermarket. Where had they gone? The sound of a chainsaw had come from inside. All these small details indicated that something unusual was going on. The survivors on the first floor gathered together and discussed the matter for a while before stepping aside to let the newcomers in. They then returned as a group to the warehouse and guarded it. Lin Qian, who had been watching from the shadows, knew she could no longer remain outside. She returned to her small office and completely sealed the door. The water and food inside were enough to last her a very long time. She had even prepared a soft bed for herself, along with downloaded TV dramas. The survivors from the second floor grabbed snacks from the shelves and wolfed them down. The survivors from the first floor stationed themselves at the warehouse entrance, watching the spectacle. This group had better be smart and not provoke that villain. Otherwise, they won't even know how they died. Whether they provoke him or not is none of our business. We just need to avoid provoking him ourselves. Put a few more locks on the warehouse. They can eat whatever food is outside, but we must guard the supplies in the warehouse. Who knows how long this apocalypse will last? They were truly terrified of Meng Sherwan. That woman simply refused to play by the rules. They couldn't beat her. They absolutely couldn't beat her. The four of them, Lin Hao, Su Yunning, and the others, looked excitedly at the supplies filling the supermarket. All of it belonged to them. But they could not act yet. They had to wait until night, when everyone was asleep and no one was watching, before storing everything in the spatial ability. They ate a little and slowly walked toward the direction from which the chainsaw was coming. A girl's scream echoed throughout the entire supermarket, startling everyone. The survivors on the second floor, who had been searching for food, clutched their supplies and rushed toward the passageway. That terrifying scream surely meant someone had been bitten by a zombie. Yet when they saw the survivors on the first floor sitting together and chatting calmly, they stopped in their tracks again. These people were clearly accustomed to such things and remained so composed, which meant there was no danger. Some of the braver ones walked toward the source of the noise, wanting to see what was happening. At that moment, Su Yuning and Liang Yin were so frightened that their faces had gone pale. Clinging to each other, they did not dare open their eyes. The two boys were hardly any better. Their lips were white, and their entire bodies were rigid. They had never seen anything like this in their lives. Even horror movies were never this bloody. In the corner ahead lay a mound of zombie corpses piled as high as a small hill, all severed into sections. Zombie heads were scattered in heaps like smashed watermelons. A person dressed in a black raincoat was dragging half a zombie out of the opening and tossing it onto the pile beside them. Whenever they found a head, they would hack it with a work shovel until the skull shattered and brains splattered everywhere, then casually throw it onto the nearby pile of corpses. Their movements were as practiced as those of an old farmer who had spent years working in a melon field. The chainsaw at the opening continued to buzz, and zombies kept rushing out, only to be chopped into 3 pieces. A few meters in front of the opening, a man wearing a helmet was tied to a shelf. He sat motionless, and it was impossible to tell whether he was alive or dead. Beside him, a long-haired cow-cat lay on the shelf, belly up and fast asleep. Everything was drenched in blood and strewn with minced flesh and tissue. The black figure in the raincoat walked across it all, each step producing a sticky, squelching sound. Even the most terrifying horror movie could not compare with the impact of the scene before them. They felt that their fantasies about the apocalypse had been far too pleasant. In a hoarse voice, Su Yuning said, "I'd imagined countless times what the scene beneath us might look like: the chainsaw and screams. Maybe humans had come under attack by zombies and were using a chainsaw to fight back. But I never imagined it would be like this." Lin Hao was utterly amazed. A trap for killing zombies? How can someone be this clever? In most post-apocalyptic novels, people just charge and heeden. I never knew you could set traps. They felt as though an entirely new way of thinking had suddenly opened up to them. Meng Sherwan noticed them. They were unfamiliar faces, so she continued with her own work. She worked from noon until late at night, and fewer zombies came down. Meng Sherwan turned off the chainsaw and used the cabinets to block the opening again. The zombie corpses beside it were piled into a mountain. After working all day, she had found only 3 crystal cores, not particularly good luck. She walked over to Zhang Chang and used the work shovel to cut through the rope binding him. Then she called out to Ta Shui, who was sleeping soundly. "Let's go. I'm covered in blood. Follow me, and don't let any of it get on you." Ta Shui opened its eyes groggily. Its pooper scooper had finished work. It jumped onto another shelf and followed Meng Sherwan as she left. Zhang Chang collapsed limply onto the floor. Staring at the bloody scene before him, he could not manage to get up for a long time. He had stopped shouting later on it because he no longer wanted to, but because he no longer had the strength. Still, he had not fallen asleep. The fear that zombies might enter at any moment and tear him apart had haunted him all day, leaving him trembling in terror. Now he only wanted to leave this hellhole. Though he had no strength left, he was determined to crawl away. With his helmet still on, he wriggled across the floor on all fours, leaving a long trail of blood behind him. The 4 people standing nearby and watching, including Lin Hao, felt their scalps prickle even more at the sight. The other survivors in the supermarket were drowsy, but none of them had slept soundly. The chainsaw had roared incessantly, while zombies had howled and shrieked. They were also afraid that the trap might fail, allowing the zombies to flood in and bite them all to death. Now that they heard the noise stop, many of them woke up completely. Chapter 16. Who could take this? The survivors from the first floor came looking for Zhang Chang. When they saw him writhing on the ground, they backed away in fright. "You're hurt? You got zombie blood on you. Aren't you going to turn into a zombie? Why don't I put you out of your misery now? It'd be awful if you turned into a zombie." Zhang Chang held on to his last breath and roared, "I'm not hurt. I'm just too scared to move." As soon as he said that, he suddenly became aware of the helmet on his head. He hadn't understood before why she had put a helmet on him, but now he understood immediately. That vicious woman had never intended to kill him from the beginning. All his wounds were on his head. The helmet could block infection from the zombie blood and prevent him from turning into a zombie as well. For some reason, Zhang Chang felt somewhat moved at that moment. That ruthless murderer, who killed without batting an eye, apparently wasn't quite as heartless as she seemed. She even had such a thoughtful side. Someone dragged over a fire hose and sprayed Zhang Chang from head to toe. The icy water brought some of Zhang Chang's senses back. He felt that he might be a pervert. That vicious woman had tortured him to this state. Yet he felt touched simply because she had put a helmet on him. Hadn't she put the helmet on him so he could serve as a zombie carrot for longer? Otherwise, if he turned into a zombie later, wouldn't she have to catch and tie up someone else? Lin Hao and the other 3 stayed in the supermarket's bedding section, keeping an eye on every movement inside. He quietly gave his instructions. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, Zhao Yu will cut the power, and Yu Ning will collect the supplies. Be quick. Go to the food section first. After about 10 minutes, restore the power and come back here. Pretend you don't know anything. The safest thing would be to leave immediately after obtaining the supplies. But outside, zombies were everywhere. They had little combat ability and nowhere better to go. Going out and encountering zombies would mean death, so hiding here was safer. As long as they acted discreetly, even if the supplies disappeared, no one would know who had taken them. Meanwhile, everyone rinsed Zhang Chang clean and forced him to take off his clothes. After confirming that he had no wounds anywhere on his body, they brought over several bottles of strong liquor and poured it over him from head to toe, not even sparing the wound on his head. Zhang Chang's agonized screams echoed throughout the supermarket. Even those who had been asleep were completely awakened by the noise. Meng Sherwan went to the seafood section to wash the blood off herself before leaving the supermarket. Everyone assumed she had gone back to sleep, but then they watched as she returned, pulling the handcart again. There was also a wooden board on the cart. The survivors on the first floor were very familiar with this scene. She was back to haul away supplies again. What she carried away trip after trip wasn't much for such a huge supermarket. But for her motorhome, it was quite a lot. Batch after batch had been stuffed inside. Yet somehow it could still hold more. It was converted from a light truck After all, it makes sense that it can carry a lot. It's probably almost full. She won't be able to haul away much more. Meng Sherwan went straight to the frozen food section and emptied all the ice cream from the freezers before heading to the fruit and vegetable section. People had already taken and eaten quite a lot of the fruits and vegetables, leaving the counters in complete disarray. She was silent for a moment, then pulled the handcart toward the warehouse. The first-floor survivors guarding the warehouse entrance saw her with bruised and swollen faces. They hurriedly turned away and crouched in the corner like quails. Even Zhang Chang, who had just been carried back, buried his face against the floor, wishing he could dig straight through it. As long as they didn't make eye contact with this vicious woman, she couldn't bully them. Meng Sherwan frowned. What? Pretending you can't see me? A man's weak voice sounded timidly. You said you didn't want us appearing in front of you again. Meng Sherwan, open the door. The man didn't hesitate for a moment. He hurriedly pulled out his keys and opened the warehouse door, which had been secured with several locks. He was afraid that if he was even a little too slow, he would be the one tied to the shelves tomorrow. He was also afraid that if he refused to open the door, this villain might burn down the warehouse. That would be a terrible loss. The survivors from the second floor watched the scene from a distance, somewhat puzzled. These people on the first floor are such cowards. A single woman scared them into acting like quails. How about we rob their warehouse? Don't rush. Let's observe a little longer. Once the supermarket's food is nearly gone, if they still refuse to share the food in their warehouse with us, we'll make our move. These cowards are even afraid of a woman. They probably aren't very capable. The way they looked at the survivors on the first floor was now tinged with contempt. Meng Sherwan pulled the cart inside. The survivors on the first floor left the warehouse door ajar and warily watched the survivors on the second floor in the distance. The warehouse was a critical stronghold. They absolutely could not allow anyone to covet it. Whoever dared to make a move on it would have to fight them to the death. Well, except for the villain inside. They couldn't beat her. Meng Sherwan entered and discovered that the warehouse was huge, stocked with all kinds of goods. Daily necessities, drinks, snacks, grains, dried foods, everything was there. Farther inside was a cold storage room containing all kinds of fruits, vegetables, and meat. Meng Sherwan was like a monkey entering an orchard. Carrying and carrying. She took more of the foods she liked, and less of the ones she didn't. 1 cubic meter of space could hold nearly 2,000 pounds of fruit and vegetables. She could stock up on quite a lot. Durian, grapes, melons, lychees, watermelons, pineapples, apples, oranges, she wanted them all. She also took some of every kind of vegetable, so she could vary her meals. She filled an entire cart, then pulled it out of the warehouse. Zhang Chang smiled obsequiously. Do you need help? Should I have someone deliver it for you? Meng Sherwan said coldly, no need. Don't lock the door. I'll be coming back again later. Zhang Chang hurriedly nodded. Oh, okay. Meng Sherwan pulled the cart back to the RV, opened the door, climbed inside, and took out the 3 crystal cores she had obtained that day. She used all of them to expand the refrigerator's storage space. The refrigerator now had 7 cubic meters of storage space. 1 cubic meter each for cooked food, desserts, meat, and seafood. The remaining 3 cubic meters had just been expanded and were still empty. She carried the goods into the RV box by box, then stuffed them into the refrigerator, placing them in the expanded storage space. The process was quite tiring, yet she enjoyed every moment of it. Compared with her previous life, having the RV system made her more than satisfied. After unloading the first cart, she went back to the warehouse for another. Before she left, Zhang Chang said cautiously, "We're afraid zombies might get in tonight, so we'll block the passageway. We'll leave a small door for you. If you want to haul more things tomorrow, we'll move the barricade out of the way again." He had to explain everything clearly. Otherwise, if this woman saw that the passageway had been blocked again tomorrow, she might burn the place down a second time. Who could withstand that? Meng Sherwan gave a cold indicating her agreement. Zhang Chang let out a deep sigh of relief. Meng Sherwan continued carrying things into the RV, stuffing them bit by bit into the refrigerator's storage space. The fruit took up about 1 cubic meter, and the vegetables took up another. She only used half a cubic meter for ice cream, leaving some space behind. Looking at the remaining empty space, she figured she wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if she didn't fill it with supplies. So she pulled the cart toward the nearby snack street. Chapter 17. Spatial ability user. It was already very late. Looking up, Meng Sherwan could see stars twinkling across the night sky. Lights, some bright and some dim, were on in the shops lining both sides of the street. Scattered zombie corpses lay fallen along the road. Meng Sherwan pulled her trailer straight to the milk tea shop. She entered the workroom, found the storeroom, and moved out all the raw ingredients stocked inside. She had memorized the recipes for all kinds of drinks. As long as she had enough ingredients, she could make whatever beverage she wanted in the future. After moving the milk tea ingredients, she went to the restaurant next door and looked around. From the kitchen, she brought back a prepared meal pack for chicken feet and crab stew to serve as tonight's late-night snack. These days, many chain restaurants sent out pre-prepared meal packs directly to prevent their secret recipes from being leaked. They only needed to be heated before serving. People always said that prepared meal packs were unhealthy. Soon though, there would not even be any prepared meal packs left to eat. Meng Sherwan pulled the trailer back to the motorhome and put the large and small bags of milk tea ingredients into the refrigerator space. Only after stuffing it completely full was she satisfied. Filling every available space was her greatest joy at the moment. She took out a wok, opened the meal pack, and poured it in to heat. Then she went beneath the sofa, took out a bag of cat food, opened it, and filled Ta Shui's little bowl with cat food and drinking water. Ta Shui crunched away happily. Meng Sherwan thought for a moment, and decided to eat chilled watermelon tonight. Of the fruit she had brought back that day, 2 watermelons had not fit into the spatial storage, and were sitting on the stairs. She picked up one, cut it in half, and put it in the refrigerator to chill. When the chicken feet and crab stew began bubbling, she turned off the heat and covered it to simmer, while she went to wash up. After taking a wonderful hot shower, she came out with water still dripping from her hair. She put her dirty clothes into the washing machine, dried her hair, and began dinner. She took out her phone and started a movie, a wonderfully healing film about rural life and food. She carried half a watermelon out of the refrigerator and placed it on the counter. Ta Shui, I'm going to eat now. She scooped out a large chunk with a spoon and put it into her mouth. The icy coolness was incredibly refreshing. Ta Shui came over, wanting a couple of bites, but Meng Sherwan pushed its head away. Watermelon is too cold, and will upset your stomach. The meal pack is full of artificial stuff, so you can't eat it. Ta Shui tilted its head. It felt as though she was bullying a poor little kitten. Fortunately, it had already eaten its fill earlier, so it curled up in a corner of the sofa and went to sleep. The prepared meal pack might not have been healthy, but it was delicious. The chicken feet were soft and chewy, and the crab meat was wonderfully fresh. In the quiet of the late night, Meng Sherwan ate while watching the movie. By the time she finished eating, washed the dishes, and went to bed, it was already past 1 in the morning. After brushing her teeth, Meng Sherwan stretched enormously, lowered the bed while holding Ta Shui, climbed onto it, and fell straight asleep. Tomorrow, she was determined to sleep in properly until the afternoon. But just as dawn began to break, the alarm from the motorhome surveillance system went off, waking her from a sound sleep. Meng Sherwan groped for her phone and checked it. It was only a little after 6 in the morning. Which blind idiot is disturbing my sleep? You'd better have a good reason, or you're going to regret it. She turned on the display beside the bed to check the surveillance footage. The motorhome was equipped with all-around cameras. They would not sound an alarm simply because someone passed by. An alarm would only be triggered if someone loitered around the motorhome for more than 5 minutes, or made an attacking gesture toward it while the owner was asleep and unaware. Meng Sherwan had installed quite a few smart electronic devices in this motorhome back then. When she turned on the display, she saw a dense ring of people surrounding the motorhome. She vaguely recognized them as the survivors who had come down from the 2nd floor yesterday. She climbed out of bed, opened the window in the door, and immediately shouted, "Are you people sick? Not sleeping this early in the morning? What are you all doing gathered here?" The furious crowd was stunned by her scolding, then quickly grew angry themselves. "You thief! How dare you yell at us? Where did you take all the supplies from the supermarket?" There were so many supplies you couldn't have carried them away by yourself. You should at least have left some for us. How can you be so shameless? Meng Shuan was about to curse them back when she realized something was wrong with their words. She asked coldly, "What's going on?" The man at the front roared, "Stop pretending. All the supermarket's supplies were stolen last night. It must have been you. You'd better hand them over, or we're not done with you." All of them had been stolen? The supermarket was enormous. Even if 10 more people had helped her, it would have been impossible to move everything away in one night without making a sound. Unless there was a space-based ability user here. She picked up the work shovel, got out of the car in her fluffy pajamas, shut the door, and headed straight for the supermarket. The survivors from the second floor hurried after her. Their faces were filled with anger. And they looked ready to fight if Meng Shuan failed to give them an explanation. The shelves that had originally been fully stocked were now so empty that not even a discarded package remained. The entire supermarket had been looted clean. No one could have done it except a space-based ability user. She truly hadn't expected to encounter such a rare ability user so soon. And it was a space-based ability user at that. After the apocalypse arrived, zombies were everywhere, but ability users were exceedingly rare. The base where she had lived in her previous life had grown to several 100,000 people by the time she died. Yet there were only a few thousand ability users. That showed just how rare they were. Space-based ability users were treasures even among ability users, and the best helpers for transporting supplies. She looked around. The survivors on the first floor were still gathered by the warehouse entrance, watching the scene gravely. Clearly, the supermarket's theft had made them nervous. However, judging by their appearance, the supplies in the warehouse should still be intact. Meng Shuan looked at Zhang Chang. What about the surveillance footage? When Zhang Chang saw Meng Shuan in her fluffy pajamas, he was momentarily stunned. Her outfit made her look less like a criminal and more like a female college student. But the moment she opened her mouth, her true nature seemed to reveal itself. Her icy voice frightened Zhang Chang into hurriedly explaining. The power went out for a while last night. We thought the fire had damaged the lines and caused them to become unstable, so we didn't pay much attention. But this morning, we discovered that everything in the supermarket was gone. We went to check the surveillance footage, only to find that the camera lines had been damaged. There was no footage from after the power outage. Meng Shuan thought to herself. Just as I expected. Someone had deliberately cut the power and stolen the supermarket's supplies, which meant the culprit had no combat ability. In the early stages, space-based ability users could only use their space to store things. Only after their ability advanced to the intermediate or advanced stage could they develop teleportation or spatial blades and gain combat capabilities. They could steal whatever they wanted, but after stealing everything, they had even tried to pin the blame on her. They were simply asking to die. Meng Shuan asked again, "Who said I stole it?" Without hesitation, Zhang Chang pointed at a young man among the people who had followed Meng Shuan inside. He did. The accused Lin Hao. He had calculated everything. But he had never expected the survivors on the first floor not to be on their side. The loss of the supermarket's supplies was a major matter for every survivor here. Lin Hao had assumed that all the survivors would join forces to search for the culprit. All he needed to do was direct suspicion toward this girl who was alone, allowing the few of them to hide safely in plain sight. Chapter 18. If they can be killed. Don't waste a single word. Who could have expected that when everyone discovered the supermarket's supplies had disappeared that morning and panicked without knowing what to do? Lin Hao would suggest. Could that girl have moved them? She killed so many zombies, so she's pretty capable. She must have had a way to move all the supplies overnight. With that, the survivors on the second floor immediately began clamoring to go and make Meng Shuan pay. The survivors on the first floor sat by the warehouse door like quails, not daring to say a word. Lin Hao was puzzled and pressed them. Don't you want to find the supplies? Who would have thought that the whole group would shake their heads like rattles? Zhang Chang spoke up. Let's not talk about the supplies for now. We just don't want to die. Who among the first floor survivors didn't know that the woman in the RV was a ruthless killer, who could kill without blinking? Anyone who went looking for trouble with her had to be tired of living. Lin Hao even called them cowards. Now these cowards didn't want to look for the supplies. Yet the moment that girl asked them, they told her everything. Meng Sherwan sized up Lin Hao and the others. What makes you think I stole the supplies? Do you have any evidence? She studied everyone's expressions. The others looked furious and frightened. Only the four of them appeared angry on the surface, while their eyes remained calm. The spatial ability user had to be one of those four. Meng Sherwan's stare made Lin Hao extremely uncomfortable, but he absolutely couldn't show any weakness now. If people found out that they were the ones who had stolen the supplies, they would never come to a good end. So he could only insist that this girl was the thief. Lin Hao declared firmly, "You're the one who stole them. I got up during the night yesterday and saw you return to the supermarket to move the supplies." Meng Sherwan almost laughed in anger. What a clumsy excuse. She had given them a chance to live, but they were too useless to take it. In that case, they couldn't blame her for being ruthless. When the first-floor survivors heard this, they were so frightened their eyes nearly popped out. They had already begun mourning the young man in their hearts. Why provoke anyone else? Why provoke her? If this woman really wanted to move the supermarket supplies, why would she need to steal them? She could move them openly. Who could stop her? Besides, how could she possibly empty the entire supermarket by herself in one night without making any noise? Sure enough, the next second, they saw Meng Sherwan move and rush toward the four of them. Before they could react, the spade in Meng Sherwan's hand had already been driven into Su Yining's throat. Blood sprayed across Lin Hao's face. Only when he felt its warmth did his expression change. "What are you doing?" "Yining." He rushed toward Su Yining in terror. Meng Sherwan pulled out the spade and quickly retreated to the side. The blood was flung through the air again, staining a large area of the floor red. Su Yining covered her spurting throat with both hands. Her mouth opened and closed as mouthful after mouthful of blood poured out. And she couldn't believe she was going to die. Wasn't she the chosen one? The chosen one who had awakened a spatial ability when the apocalypse arrived. How could she possibly die so easily? Lin Hao held her and roared, Yining, Yining, don't leave me. You won't die. You can't." Only then did everyone come to their senses and hurriedly retreat. She killed someone. Is she a demon? She killed someone without saying a word. That's terrifying. Even though the first-floor survivors had been mentally prepared, seeing this scene still made their hearts ache. What a vicious criminal. She was far too savage. They had told them not to provoke her, but these people insisted on courting death. No one could stop them. She really killed people at the slightest disagreement. If someone could be killed, she absolutely wouldn't waste a single word. Under everyone's stunned gazes, Su Yining died unwillingly. At that instant, the missing supplies burst out and piled up like a small mountain, burying everyone beneath them. Meng Sherwan had been prepared and quickly retreated, narrowly avoiding being buried. When a space-type ability user dies, the supplies stored in their space burst out. Of the four people just now, whether consciously or unconsciously, they had shielded the girl behind them. They were sneaking around and full of obvious flaws, yet they still dared to provoke her. They even wanted her to take the blame for them. They truly had a death wish. Meng Sherwan picked up a rabbit plush pajama top lying in front of her, then walked over to Zhang Chong with the spade in hand. The fear in Zhang Chong's eyes deepened when he looked at Meng Sherwan. He felt that the fact he was still alive after provoking her earlier was already proof that she had shown him exceptional mercy. He ingratiatingly asked, "Sis, do you need anything?" Meng Sherwan said coldly, "1 durian, a dozen eggs, 2 heads of lettuce, a bag of sliced bread, and a bottle of mango juice." Zhang Chong hurriedly waved his hand. "What are you standing around for? Hurry up and get sis her things." He glanced back at the blood dripping from the spade in Meng Sherwan's hand, and tried to make conversation. "Sis, that spade of yours is really sharp. One swing, and you can take someone's head clean off." Behind you, Zhang Chong suddenly let out a scream. Lin Hao was holding a fire extinguisher, his eyes bloodshot, and was swinging it toward Meng Sherwan's head. "Go to hell." Meng Sherwan turned around and dodged the incoming fire extinguisher, then raised the spade in her hand and slit his throat. Clean and decisive, the movement incredibly practiced. Zhang Chong watched helplessly as the young man collapsed. After standing there dumbfounded for a long while, he praised her in shock. "Sis, your spade really is sharp." The man who had gone into the warehouse to retrieve the supplies came out and saw that another person had died beside Meng Sherwan. Trembling, he held the large bag out to her. Sis, is this enough?" Meng Sherwan took the supplies and returned to the RV. A crowd of people was left behind, unable to make sense of what had happened. "Brother Chong, the supplies in the supermarket suddenly disappeared yesterday, and then suddenly reappeared just now. What's going on?" "You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask? How would I know? How strange. It's all the supplies in the entire supermarket. Why do they keep flickering in and out like that?" The survivors on the second floor crawled out from beneath the piles of supplies. When they saw yet another corpse on the floor, their faces turned deathly pale with fear. "She's killed someone? How can she just kill someone? She looks like such a nice young woman. Who would have thought she was a murderer?" People in the apocalypse are even scarier than zombies. Standing not far away, Zhang Chang reminded them. "I told you a long time ago not to provoke her. You refused to listen. Well, look at you now. You're all obedient, aren't you?" They had always believed that no matter how serious a conflict between people became, it was still only a conflict. They had never seen anyone kill another person over a simple disagreement. If this had happened before the apocalypse, she would undoubtedly have been feared by everyone as a vicious thug, a murderer, a devil. Even in the apocalypse, they still thought of her that way. It was just that no one was around to punish such a demon anymore. Meng Sherwan returned to the RV and set down the supplies. She removed the plush pajama top stained with blood and tossed it out the window, then changed into the rabbit plush pajama top she had picked up. After washing the blood off the spade, she went back to sleep. Surely no one would dare disturb her sleep now. She really couldn't tell whether she was lucky or unlucky. The unlucky part was encountering an ability user. The lucky part was that he was an early-stage space-type ability user and not a particularly intelligent one at that. He had no combat power, yet still dared to cause trouble. If she had encountered any other ability user with offensive powers, she would have had to run first and worry about the rest later. Chapter 19. Do I look scary? Meng Sherwan slept until nightfall. When she opened her eyes, she found the inside of the RV shrouded in darkness. "Xiaoji, turn on all the lights." All the lights in the RV came on, dispelling the darkness. Takshu was lying on the inner side of the bed, sprawled out and still snoring away. Meng Sherwan picked it up, jumped off the bed, and raised the bed platform. She drew back the curtains and glanced outside. It was already completely dark. "Takshu, go poop. We're not going out today." Meng Sherwan set Takshu on the floor, but Takshu was still groggy and didn't want to go. It jumped onto the sofa and went back to sleep. Seeing how sleepy it was, Meng Sherwan found it amusing and simply left it alone. She turned on the living room monitor and continued playing the healing movie she hadn't finished watching the night before. Takshu found the noise annoying, but covered its ears with both paws and continued sleeping anyway. Meng Sherwan yawned and went to wash up. Then she took the clothes out of the washing machine, put them on hangers, and hung them to dry above the staircase, on the RV's second-floor roof. What should I eat tonight? Thinking about what to eat each day had become one of Meng Sherwan's favorite pleasures. She put the mango juice in the refrigerator to chill, took the small frying pan hanging on the wall, placed it on the induction stove, and fried some eggs over low heat. She washed and drained the lettuce, then went upstairs and retrieved a bottle of ketchup and a packet of cheese slices to make simple sandwiches. After frying the eggs, she added some water and boiled several large prawns for Takshu. Before long, dinner was ready. 2 sandwiches, a glass of mango juice, a durian, and half a watermelon she had put in the refrigerator the day before. Tonight was a fruit and snack feast. Delicious. Her favorite. She placed everything on the small table in front of the sofa, fished out the boiled prawns, peeled and shredded them, then mixed them with a can of cat food. That little glutton Takshu would be utterly delighted. "Xiaoji, turn off all the lights except those in the living room." The lights inside the RV suddenly dimmed, leaving only the gentle glow from several small bulbs beneath the bed platform above the living room. Meng Sherwan took a cushion and placed it in the corner between the sofa and the wardrobe. Hugging the watermelon, She stretched out comfortably on it, and scooped out pieces of watermelon while watching the movie. Outside, the night was peaceful and still. Inside the RV, the light was soft and dim. Eating fruit while watching a movie, nothing could be more comfortable. The RV, immune to all damage, was like a sturdy fortress, providing an overwhelming sense of security in this perilous post-apocalyptic world. Meng Sherwan set down the watermelon, casually pulled a packet of spicy strips from beneath the dining table, and picked up a sandwich. It was so delicious it nearly made her swoon. Taksha smacked its lips as it finished its meal, then clumsily went to the toilet and used the toilet, flushing afterward. When it came out of the bathroom, it saw Meng Sherwan opening the durian. The little cat stared at her with wide, round eyes, full of confusion. It looked at the durian in Meng Sherwan's hand, then at the poop that had just been flushed away. And a trace of regret appeared in its eyes. If it had known its pooper-scooper liked eating poop, it should have saved the fresh, steaming batch it had just produced for her. After Meng Sherwan had eaten her fill, drowsiness came over her. Xiaoji, turn off the television and the lights. As soon as she finished speaking, she fell asleep face down on the sofa. The RV sank into darkness and became completely quiet in the night. Early the next morning, Meng Sherwan felt a dull pressure in her chest and found it hard to breathe. She opened her eyes and happened to meet Taksha's round, bright eyes. The chubby Takshu was sitting on her chest, nearly crushing her to death. Takshu, what are you doing? Meng Sherwan hugged Takshu and sat up, gasping for breath. Takshu jumped into the corridor, then looked back at Meng Sherwan, signaling for her to follow. Not knowing what it wanted, Meng Sherwan followed it into the bathroom, only to see Takshu jump onto the toilet and produce an enormous poop. Whoa, Takue. That's amazing. You've learned to use the toilet. Tashua looked at Meng Sherwan, then at the poop in the toilet. Eat it while it's hot, the poop scooper likes it. Give it all to the poop scooper. Based on her understanding of Tashua, Meng Sherwan felt that something seemed a little off. She tentatively reached out to flush. After you poop, press this button. Unexpectedly, Tashua grabbed her hand, looked at her, then at the poop in the toilet, urging her to eat it while it was still warm. Meng Sherwan was sure now. Her fur stood on end. Tashua, I'm not eating poop. I'm not. She pressed the flush button and sent the poop straight down the toilet. Tashua didn't understand. She felt wronged, as though her good intentions had been rejected. The poop scooper had eaten so happily last night after all. Helpless, Meng Sherwan held Tashua and explained, what I ate yesterday smelled bad, but it wasn't poop. It was fruit. I don't eat poop, understand? Don't call me over to eat poop again. Tashua seemed to understand, but also seemed not to. If it smelled just as bad, why wasn't it poop? Using the few eggs left from the previous day, Meng Sherwan mixed them with flour and made several savory pancakes. After having a simple breakfast with Tashua, she changed clothes and went out with the trash. They didn't go to the supermarket. Instead, they took the staircase on the other side up to the second floor. Tashua crouched on Meng Sherwan's shoulder while Meng Sherwan gripped the construction shovel in her hand and quietly climbed the stairs, remaining alert to everything around her. She wasn't sure whether the small traps on the first floor had lured all the zombies on the second floor over and killed them. For the sake of her life, it was better to be careful. If she let her guard down and got grabbed by a zombie, she would have no choice but to wait for death. Before she had even left the stairwell, Meng Sherwan heard the sounds of fighting coming from inside. She quietly stood at the corner and peered in. A tall man was engaged in a struggle with several zombies. He held a tang sword in his hand. After putting some distance between himself and the zombies, he turned and swung his blade, slicing off a zombie's head. Perhaps afraid of being grabbed by the zombies, he was extremely cautious. He only counterattacked after putting enough distance between himself and them. Meng Sherwan had seen this man before. He was the dazed and helpless owner of the outdoor goods store. After dealing with the zombies, he used his tang sword to split open their heads, searching for something. Meng Sherwan was surprised. Did he actually know to collect crystal cores? She surveyed the area. Several zombies lay scattered along the second-floor corridor, while the staircase leading to the third floor had also been blocked off to prevent the zombies upstairs from coming down and launching a sneak attack. Seeing that the second floor was safe, Meng Sherwan didn't approach Wei Yi. Instead, she took Ta Shui into a nearby variety store to see whether it had anything she needed. She should gather as much as possible from this mall. After leaving, she might not find another place with such abundant supplies. Meng Sherwan picked up a small hat, put it on Ta Shui's little head, and spun around in front of the mirror. So cute. Wei Yi's reflection appeared in the mirror. Meng Sherwan noticed him, tightened her grip on the construction shovel, and quickly backed away, keeping her distance from the man. Wei Yi was startled by her extreme reaction, and looked deeply puzzled. Every time you see me, you act like you've seen a ghost. Why are you so wary of me? Do I look that scary? He really couldn't understand it. He wasn't a zombie. Did she really need to be so guarded around him? Meng Sherwan said coldly, "What do you want?" She wouldn't have to be so wary if it were someone else, but this man was different. The signs of training were visible all over him. He looked like he could really fight, so she couldn't afford to let her guard down. Chapter 20. Can the fish tank be expanded? Wei Yi spread open his palm, revealing the 2 crystal cores inside. Are you looking for these? The last time Meng Sherwan left his shop, she had told him to hide somewhere safe. Unfortunately, there was no food in the shop, so hiding was impossible. He had to go out and look for food. He put on a raincoat and helmet, drew the treasured Tang sword he had kept for years, armed himself fully, steeled himself, and opened the shop door. He discovered that the outside was not as dangerous as he had imagined. Many of the zombies had already been cleared out, leaving only a few wandering around. After cautiously dealing with 2 zombies, Wei Yi felt that they were not as difficult to handle as he had thought. As long as he was careful, he could manage just fine. Changing his mind, he abandoned the idea of finding food and hiding. Instead, he decided to look for survivors and gather them together. There was strength in numbers, and that would greatly increase their chances of survival. He wandered around beneath the shopping mall and noticed that all the zombies that had been killed shared one characteristic. Their heads had been split open, as if someone had deliberately hacked them apart. Decapitating a zombie was enough to kill it, so why had every zombie's head been split open? Whenever Wei Yi encountered another zombie, he began splitting open its head to take a look. Eventually, he discovered a crystal core inside one of them. He could say with absolute certainty that the person who had killed the zombies was searching for these crystal cores. Sure enough, when the young woman in front of him saw the crystal cores in his hand, her eyes lit up slightly. Meng Sherwan asked indifferently, "Are you selling them?" Wei Yi withdrew his hand. "I can give the crystal cores to you, but you have to answer me a few questions." He was unclear about the current situation, but the young woman before him clearly knew much more than he did. Meng Sherwan continued watching him warily. "Ask." 2 more crystal cores meant 2 more cubic meters of space. That was extremely important to her. Wei Yi asked, "Why are you collecting crystal cores? What are they used for? Why did the supplies that disappeared from the supermarket suddenly reappear after you killed that woman? You said last time that there would be rescue efforts. Is there really a rescue team? Will there ever be a day when the zombies are completely eliminated and civilization is restored?" He had gone to the supermarket yesterday and seen the survivors there sorting through mountains of supplies piled on the floor. After asking around, he learned what had happened. The disappearance and reappearance of the supermarket supplies was all too strange, but unfortunately, no one dared ask her what had happened. Meng Sherwan's gaze darkened. Crystal cores can become currency in the future and be exchanged for supplies. That woman was a space-type ability user. Powerful ability users appeared alongside the zombies. When a space-type ability user dies, supplies will burst out. There will definitely be rescue teams. Humanity won't simply do nothing and wait to die. I don't know whether civilization will ever be restored. She looked up and stared coldly at Wei Yi. "Put down the crystal cores, keep your distance from me, and don't come within 10 meters of me." Having received his answers, Wei Yi kept his word. He placed the 2 crystal cores on the counter nearby, and left the small goods shop. After he had gone some distance away, Meng Sherwan stepped forward and picked up the crystal cores, feeling quite pleased. "I'll be able to stock up on plenty more things." She continued wandering around with Ta Shui, taking a shopping basket, and putting everything she liked into it. A beautiful straight-sided metal thermos, with a straw it would be perfect for holding milk tea. A green round flask with a shoulder strap, convenient to take outside. Pretty chopsticks and small spoons that she could take with her. The backpacks were nice, so she took 2. Swimming goggles, these were especially useful. Wearing them over her eyes would prevent zombie blood from splashing into them. Small hair clips, little scarves, and anything else useful, she took a few of each. When the shopping basket could hold no more, she stuffed the rest into a backpack and carried it on her back. Ta Shui leaped onto a shelf displaying decorations and stared at a delicate little fish tank. The little fish tank was vintage in style, with dark brown metal fittings securing all 4 sides. It had a pointed lid with ventilation holes on top. Even when placed in an RV, the water would not slosh out while the vehicle was moving. Inside the tank were colorful pebbles, a few small green aquatic plants, and several little red fish swimming back and forth. Ta Shui watched the fish with complete concentration. If you like it, take it with you. You can watch it as much as you want once we're back in the RV. Meng Shuan lifted the little fish tank down and placed it in one corner of the shopping basket. Miao Ta Shui swished its tail happily. When Meng Shuan walked out of the variety store carrying the basket and backpack, she saw Wei Yi leading 2 survivors in suits as they called out along the corridor. Anyone still alive? Come out quickly. It's safe outside. I'll take you downstairs, where there's food. Following his voice, several more survivors emerged from the storefronts and hurried after him. Meng Shuan clicked her tongue. She hadn't expected the burly man to be such a warm-hearted person. She entered the cell phone store next door, used several memory cards to access the computer, and began downloading movies and games. They could be used to pass the time later. Once the internet went down, there would be no online entertainment left. She downloaded a variety of highly rated movies, television dramas, popular variety shows, and several famous single-player games. When one memory card wasn't enough, she simply filled several more. They took up hardly any space, anyway. By the time Meng Shuan came out of the cell phone store with a string of memory cards, Wei Yi was also leading more than a dozen survivors downstairs. She followed behind them without getting involved and went straight back to the RV. Meng Shuan set everything down and began organizing it. She put the tableware in the cabinet drawers, placed the cups on top of the cabinet, and stuffed several pairs of swimming goggles into the gaps in the shoe cabinet. She stuck a magnetic piece to the bottom of Ta Shui's fish tank, and another to the top of the shoe cabinet. The tank could then be firmly secured there, so even when the RV was moving, there was no need to worry about it falling. She stuffed the 2 backpacks into the gap beside the passenger seat. While Meng Shuan busied herself, Ta Shui happily watched the little fish swimming back and forth. Meng Shuan stroked its head, took out 2 crystal cores, and began considering which part of the RV to expand. She summoned a perspective view of the RV and discovered that another area inside it had become available for expansion. That little fish tank? Meng Shuan was surprised. She repeatedly checked the location and image on the perspective view, confirming that the expandable space belonged to the little fish tank. Her heart instantly filled with excitement. What would the space expanded from the fish tank be like? Would it merely be for storing things? Or could it be used to raise fish? If she could raise fish there, it would be an enormous surprise. It would mean a sustainable source of production. In a post-apocalyptic world beset by one disaster after another, the importance of sustainable production went without saying. Impatient, she used 1 crystal core to expand the fish tank space. She walked over to the little fish tank and swept it with her consciousness. Its interior instantly expanded into a 1-cubic space. It was filled almost to the brim with water, with colorful stones at the bottom, and some green aquatic plants drifting within it. It was simply an enlarged version of the fish tank. The aquatic plants swayed back and forth, indicating that time flowed within this space rather than remaining static. It could absolutely be used to raise fish. Chapter 21. Just treat him like a fart and let him go. The system's mechanical voice, silent for a long time, suddenly rang out. Congratulations on unlocking the fish pond. Time flows normally within the fish pond. Rewards: automatic water purification and aeration, enhanced aquatic plant growth, and promotion of ecological circulation. Keep up the good work. Meng Shawan's eyes widened with excitement. She was so thrilled that she almost jumped on the spot. Hugging Tashue's head, she gave it a big kiss. Tashue, you really are my good baby. If Tashue hadn't taken a liking to this little fish tank, she would never have brought back such a useless decoration. Naturally, she would also never have discovered that a fish pond could be unlocked inside the RV. Tashue was still bewildered and had no idea what a great deed it had done. It only knew that its owner was happy, so it was happy too. Meng Shawan eagerly opened the refrigerator space and used her mind to move some of the aquatic products inside it into the fish pond. In an instant, the fish and shrimp appeared inside the fish pond space. The fish swam around happily, while the shrimp and crabs scurried over the colorful stones, occasionally crawling onto the aquatic plants to look for food. These fish and shrimp had been live specimens that Meng Shawan had scooped out of the supermarket's tanks earlier and directly placed in the refrigerator space. Time stood still inside the space, so anything put in alive would still be alive when taken out. Watching the fish swim back and forth in the water, Meng Shawan said in delight, "Just as I thought." Supplies within the RV's expanded space could be moved directly between spaces. She no longer needed to take them out of the refrigerator and painstakingly carry them over to put them into the little fish tank. The system had just said that the rewards included water purification, enhanced aquatic plant growth, and promotion of ecological circulation. Aquatic plants covered the fish pond, and many of the fish and shrimp fed on them. This small pond had developed its own ecological cycle, and might not even require much maintenance from her. Such good stuff. Truly. Such good stuff. No matter how many supplies she stockpiled, renewable resources would always be more precious in the apocalypse. Then Meng Shawan had another thought. If a little fish tank could expand into a fish pond, could a small flower pot expand into a farm? The more she thought about it, the more excited she became, and the more likely it seemed. Suppressing her urge to rush out and find a small flower pot immediately, she first organized the space inside the RV. After moving some of the fish and shrimp into the fish pond, half a cubic meter of space had been freed up in the refrigerator. She still had one crystal core in hand. After careful consideration, she decided to use it to upgrade the space on the second floor of the RV. After thinking it over, she realized that the 500 bags of table salt stored upstairs would not be enough. Salt was indispensable to the human body and would become extremely valuable in the future. She decided to go all the way and stockpile 1 cubic meter of table salt, 2 full tons, enough to last her a lifetime. After that, she would never have to worry about table salt again. Once she made up her mind, she used the crystal core in her hand to expand the second floor space, then moved in the 500 bags of table salt, freeing up another section of space upstairs. Meng Shawan pulled her cart and headed straight for the supermarket. The supplies that had been piled up like small mountains inside the supermarket had been reorganized by the survivors and placed on shelves or sorted into piles on the floor. When she entered, Wei Yi was gathering all the survivors together for a meeting. He encouraged everyone, "This disaster may last for a very long time, and we have no idea when the rescue team will come to save us. We need to unite and find a way to survive on our own. I have a suggestion. The zombies outside have basically been cleared out, so it's relatively safe. We can't just sit around. We should collect all the edible food, medicine, and other supplies from the shops outside. Eat the perishable food first, then the food that can be stored longer. Treasure our supplies and try to make them last as long as possible. We should also fill every container with water and store it, in case an accident cuts off the water supply. That way, we can ensure we have enough food and water while waiting for rescue. What do you think?" Most of the survivors supported his proposal. The remaining few, too timid to leave the supermarket, took on the task of collecting water. Meng Shawan was quite surprised. She hadn't expected this man to have some sense after all. When Zhang Chang saw Meng Shawan approaching, he hurried over. "Sis, here to haul supplies." Meng Shawan nodded. Open the door." Zhang Chang immediately took out his keys and opened the warehouse door. Meng Shawan pulled the cart inside. She first moved the table salt, then processed foods such as cured meat, cured fish, brown sugar, white sugar, and honey. Finally, she took some garbage bags, sanitary pads, tissues and other commonly used household supplies. The supermarket was indeed large, and its warehouse had quite a lot of stock. Once she had moved nearly everything she wanted, she went into the cold storage room and took 2 durians before pulling the cart back out. The people holding a meeting outside saw the boxes piled high on her cart. One man complained unhappily, "She never comes to meetings or helps collect supplies. Why does she get to take so many things?" He had only just followed Wei Yi down from the 2nd floor, and didn't know what had happened below. The person beside him hurriedly covered his mouth and whispered a warning. "Shut up, quick. Are you tired of living? How dare you provoke her? Everyone who's crossed her is dead by now. Don't let the fact that she's a woman fool you. She has no hesitation about killing." The man didn't believe him. He pulled away the hand covering his mouth. "I'm just telling the truth. She couldn't possibly kill me over a couple of sentences, could she?" Meng Shiwan suddenly stopped as she was pulling the cart out and stood still. The moment she stopped, the entire area fell silent, and everyone held their breath. Based on what they knew about this vicious woman, if someone displeased her, she really would kill them. For a moment, everyone's eyes turned to the man, filled with pity. The man wasn't afraid of Meng Shiwan. Instead, the pitying looks from those around him as though they were looking at a dead man made his entire body go cold. "Why are you all looking at me like that?" In the silent atmosphere, footsteps sounded. They saw Meng Shiwan approaching step by step, a shovel gripped in her hand. That shovel had smashed the heads of countless zombies and severed the necks of several people. Zhang Chong was startled. Relying on the fact that he could speak to Meng Shiwan somewhat, he hurried after her. Cease. He didn't recognize a great person when he saw one. Don't stoop to his level. If you really want, I'll make him apologize to you. You can take whatever you want from the supermarket. We have no objections. Please don't get angry. Wei Yi also felt a little numb when he saw this scene. He had heard about the way this girl operated inside the supermarket. If anyone provoked her, she truly dared to kill them. Wei Yi also tried to persuade her. Well, it's not worth it. This is such a minor matter. It's not worth starting a conflict over. Exactly. Go ahead and take whatever you want. Without you, we wouldn't have this peace and quiet now. Who knows where I'd still be hiding? Too afraid to come out. We have no objections to you taking supplies. He doesn't know any better. Just let him off the hook. As Meng Shiwan drew closer and closer to the man, everyone hurriedly tried to placate her. The zombies outside were frightening enough. They really didn't want to witness a murder right in front of them. Frightened by the atmosphere they had created, the man also began to feel guilty. As Meng Shiwan approached, he kept backing away until he fell onto the ground. Chapter 22. We're all humans, so why is the difference between us so huge? Meng Shiwan sidestepped him, picked up a potted plant from the rack beside her, and turned to leave without even giving the man a proper look. She had nearly pulled her cart out of the aisle, when she could still hear the supermarket employees' shaken voices from inside. Newcomers, take my advice. Offend anyone you want. But don't mess with that girl. She's a lunatic who can kill without batting an eye. She scared me half to death just now. I thought blood was going to be spilled right there. Why did you provoke her when everything was fine? Meng Shiwan's fearsome reputation was deeply ingrained in everyone's minds. They now felt nervous whenever they saw her. They always felt that if they said one wrong thing, she would swing her work shovel at them and chop their throats. Meng Shiwan parked the cart beside the motorhome, and first carried the potted plant inside. She stuck a magnetic strip to the bottom of the pot as well, securing it beside the small fish tank. It was a succulent plant. Inside the square pot were several round, plump succulents, along with a layer of green moss. A colorful ceramic mushroom ornament sat on the moss. After arranging the plant, Meng Shiwan eagerly summoned the motorhome's X-ray view and discovered that, just as expected, an expandable option had appeared where the plant was positioned. Her guess had been right. The potted plant could very likely expand into a farm. Unfortunately, she had no crystal cores at the moment, so there was no point in getting excited. Meng Shiwan could only suppress her anticipation and begin moving the supplies into the motorhome. She put the cured meat, sausages, white sugar, honey, and similar items into the half-cubic meter space she had cleared in the refrigerator. Garbage bags, sanitary pads, and other daily necessities went into a small area she had cleared on the second floor. Bag after bag of table salt was placed into the newly expanded 1-cubic storage space on the second floor. Once she had organized these items, Meng Sherwan eagerly put on her raincoat, donned her swimming goggles, and grabbed her work shovel to hunt zombies. She urgently needed a crystal core to expand the potted plant and find out exactly what would happen. The zombies on the first and second floors outside the mall had already been cleared out. Now she could only go to the third floor. The zombies upstairs had probably been drawn down in a wave by the small chainsaw traps she had made earlier. There shouldn't be too many left. She did not make any more traps and chose to fight her way up directly. After moving aside the cabinet blocking the escalator entrance, Meng Sherwan stood on the escalator and slowly ascended to the third floor. As soon as she stepped off the escalator, the fresh, living flesh of a human attracted the attention of the wandering zombies on the third floor. They all lunged toward her. Meng Sherwan roughly estimated that there were more than a dozen. Several of them had their abdomens torn open, their intestines and organs dragging along the floor as they lurched stiffly toward her. The sight was extremely disgusting. Meng Sherwan swung the work shovel in her hand, chopping off the heads of the nearest zombies first, then ran toward a clothing store. She pushed at the door, only to find it locked from the inside. A girl's head emerged from behind the counter inside. She glanced at the zombies gathering outside with a face full of terror, then quickly ducked back down. Meng Sherwan turned around. Zombies were surging toward her from both sides of the corridor, only a few meters away and about to pounce on her. Faced with more than a dozen zombies attacking at once, she could not possibly deal with them all in a short time. If she was careless and one of them managed to grab her, she would certainly lose her life. When fighting zombies, one had to be extremely cautious. Gritting her teeth, Meng Sherwan vaulted over the railing ahead and jumped straight down, her figure disappearing from sight. The girl inside the clothing store, who had been secretly watching the situation outside, screamed in terror when she saw this. This was the third floor. The open atrium in the middle extended all the way down, so jumping from here meant falling directly to the first floor. The mall's floors were quite high. If that girl fell, she would be crippled even if she survived. The girl had never seen anyone jump from a building so decisively and cleanly. It truly terrified her. After screaming, she realized that something was wrong. Sure enough, the zombies, having lost their target, heard the commotion and began pounding frantically on the glass doors. Once the glass shattered, she would be torn apart and devoured alive by the horde of zombies. The girl was so frightened that she pressed herself tightly against the wall, her face deathly pale. Just as she was about to lose all hope, she saw the slender figure in the black raincoat, who had jumped off the building earlier, coming back up the escalator. The figure circled around behind the horde of zombies, raised the construction shovel in her hand, and smashed a zombie's head with a single blow. The girl nearly thought she was hallucinating. She had jumped from the third floor. Yet not only had she survived, she was now lively and vigorously hacking zombies apart. Was this person even human? Meng Sherwan had not fallen to the first floor. Instead, she had used the railing to swing herself back onto the second floor. These were all skills she had developed in the apocalypse. Without some real ability, no one could have survived that long. The girl from the clothing store helped draw the attention of some of the zombies. Taking advantage of this, Meng Sherwan attacked from behind and swiftly felled 4 or 5 zombies. These dozen or so zombies were no longer a threat to her. Whenever a zombie lunged at her, she would retreat first, create some distance, then swing the construction shovel, and deliver a devastating blow to its head. In just a few minutes, she had eliminated all the zombies. She split open their heads one by one, but did not find a single crystal core. Meng Sherwan was somewhat disappointed, but continued upstairs to kill zombies on the 4th floor. There were more zombies on the 4th floor than on the 3rd, around 20 or so. Fortunately, they were not densely packed. They lunged at her in small groups, only to be swiftly dealt with by Meng Sherwan. Still, there were no crystal cores. No way. I can't possibly be this unlucky today, can I? She looked toward the final floor of the mall, the 5th floor. There might be even more zombies on the 5th floor, So Meng Sherwan did not charge up directly. She struck the trash can at the entrance of the fourth-floor escalator with her construction shovel, producing a series of loud bangs. When the zombies on the fifth floor heard the noise, they would rush over and be carried down to the fourth floor by the descending escalator. Meng Sherwan simply stood guard at the escalator entrance, cutting down every zombie that came down. When the survivors on the fourth floor saw that the zombies had all been cleared out, they slowly poked their heads out of the shops. Seeing the slender black figure slaughtering the zombies, they were completely stunned. One zombie scared me so badly that I didn't even dare breathe loudly, while this girl has killed her way through several floors. She's unbelievably tough. Are the zombies we're facing really the same? One is enough to take my life, while she can take the lives of zombies across several floors. We're all human, so how can the difference be this huge? Facing the survivors' admiring gazes, Meng Sherwan could not feel happy. She was even somewhat irritable. Reality had taught her that when someone was unlucky, they could truly be incredibly unlucky. She had cleared the zombies from 3 floors, yet had genuinely failed to obtain even a single crystal core. She desperately wanted to expand the potted plant space and see what it could do. Yet after clearing nearly 100 zombies across 3 floors, she had not obtained a single crystal core. Meng Sherwan stared at the mall, now completely cleared out by her, and fell silent. If she wanted to continue hunting zombies, she could only go somewhere else. There really was not a single zombie left to find in this mall. Looks like it's time to leave. She had nearly finished stocking up on the supplies she needed, and the available storage space in the motorhome was basically full. There was no point in staying here any longer. She walked out of the mall and saw the survivors pushing shopping carts and hauling carts, gathering supplies from the other shops along the snack street and storing them in the supermarket. Chapter 23. Surrounded by a horde of zombies, Meng Sherwan saw a man pushing 2 shopping carts, both packed full of snacks. She glanced at them and saw that they were all her favorites. Bagged luosafen, instant noodles, potato chips, French fries, chocolate, dried mango, small bottles of soda. Meng Sherwan casually took the carts from him and cheerfully pushed them away. The man stared blankly as the shopping carts in his hands somehow ended up in Meng Sherwan's possession. There was a saying, angry but afraid to speak. He didn't even dare to feel angry, and instead asked obsequiously, "Jet, is that enough to eat? You can have the snacks in this cart too." Meng Sherwan waved her hand, indicating that she didn't want them. She placed the snacks beside the RV and walked into the supermarket. A large amount of supplies was piled up in the open area of the supermarket, probably just brought in from outside. Several timid women were busy sorting the supplies into different categories. Meng Sherwan arrived at the seafood section and saw several women carrying a stack of buckets and filling them with water. When they saw her approach, they looked at her with a mixture of restraint and fear. Meng Sherwan took the hose, stood some distance away from the buckets, and rinsed the blood from her body. One of the girls looked at her several times before finally asking, unable to hold back, "Jia, how are you so strong? You killed all the zombies in the entire mall." They were afraid of Meng Sherwan, but at the same time, they admired her strength. In an environment like this, strength meant having a better chance of survival. Meng Sherwan glanced at them and said indifferently, "If you want to survive properly, stop thinking of yourselves as women. Learn what you need to learn and practice what you need to practice. Hold yourselves to a higher standard than men. Only then might you survive in this cannibalistic apocalypse. Being delicate and fussy will only get you killed faster." All the zombies outside had already been cleared out, yet they were still hiding inside the supermarket, afraid to go out and carry supplies. If that wasn't being delicate and fussy, what was? In the apocalypse, acting precious wouldn't earn anyone's sympathy, only endless humiliation. The girls were stunned. They hadn't expected this ruthless woman, who usually spoke so little, to say so much to them. Meng Sherwan carried several buckets of bottled water back to the RV, took off her raincoat, and stuffed it into the storage compartment beside the chassis. She then took out a small water pump and filled both water tanks. She poured the snacks from the shopping carts onto the sofa, then placed the carts on the rack at the back of the vehicle. There was a large metal rack at the rear, originally meant for electric bicycles and the like. It worked just as well for holding shopping carts. She loaded the handcart and wooden boards beside it as well, securing everything tightly with rope. When she went elsewhere to haul supplies later, having these two small carts would make things much easier. Back in the RV, she checked the time. It was already past 1 in the afternoon. Meng Sherwan poured some cat food for Ta Shui, and prepared to make lunch for herself. She was focused on finding another crystal core to expand her potted plant space, so she made a very simple lunch. She cooked luosafen with an egg, sausage, and braised pig's feet. The deluxe bowl of luosafen was so fragrant it could make someone delirious. It nearly made Ta Shui vomit from the stench. Its pupils widened as it stared at Meng Sherwan in shock and disbelief. It had always said that its owner liked eating feces, while she insisted that it wasn't feces. This clearly smelled even worse than feces. Seeing its expression, Meng Sherwan hurriedly clarified, "Don't look at me like that. I'm not eating feces." Ta Shui blinked, obviously unconvinced. It still believed that its owner was merely making excuses. Meng Sherwan took a bottle of chilled cola from the refrigerator, opened half a durian, and began eating. Ta Shui stood on the sofa with its head poking out of the window for air. It stank. It stank terribly. It felt as if the entire vehicle was being permeated with the smell, and it was suddenly tempted to run away from home. After finishing her meal, Meng Sherwan washed the pot and hung it back on the wall. Seeing Ta Shui sticking her head out of the window to get some air, she found it hilarious. Meng Sherwan pulled Ta Shui back inside and closed the window. "Xiaoji, activate the air circulation and ventilation." "Okay, master."
Air circulation activated.
Meng Sherwan closed all the windows and put away or secured anything on the tabletop that might fall. Holding the remaining half bottle of Coke, she came to the driver's cab through the opening behind the monitor. "Ta Shui, we're leaving." She started the vehicle and slowly drove away from the shopping mall. Zhang Chong, who had just returned from carrying things, saw the pink RV parked at the entrance to the passage driving away. He hurriedly shouted, "Sis, where are you going? Are you coming back?" Sis, the only response was a cloud of exhaust fumes. There weren't many cars on the road. Whenever she encountered vehicles stopped at intersections for traffic lights and blocking the way, Meng Sherwan simply increased the engine power and forced her way through, squeezing out a path. An RV immune to all damage was practically a road tyrant. If it could ram, it rammed. If it could squeeze through, it squeezed through. The scene was exceptionally brutal. Ta Shui, lying on the central console, clung tightly to anything she could grab, and was nearly flung off several times. The zombies wandering along the road heard the engine, and stiffly gave chase. Meng Sherwan couldn't be bothered to deal with these scattered zombies, so she simply drove on and shook them off. Whenever one got in her way, she ran it over without hesitation. Her destination was an agricultural produce market, not very far away. If the potted plant really expanded into a farm, she could conveniently stock up on more seeds at the seed shop in the market. Meng Sherwan had located the agricultural produce market on the map, but as she was about to arrive, she vaguely sensed that something was wrong. There were far too many cars parked along the roadside. The sidewalks were packed with electric scooters, while the roadside was lined bumper to bumper with cars and three-wheeled vehicles. They were crammed together so tightly that they almost extended into the middle of the road. "There's a market at the agricultural produce market." The moment she realized this, she immediately turned around and prepared to leave. She could look for a seed shop anywhere, but an agricultural produce market holding a fair would undoubtedly be flooded with zombies by now. She wanted to find crystal nuclei, but she certainly didn't want to risk her life fighting zombies. However, it was already too late. The road ahead was blocked by a stream of vehicles. There must have been chaos when the zombie outbreak occurred. The vehicles had been left scattered across the road, crashing into one another and completely blocking the way. She could only reverse and turn around. But in that short time, zombies poured out from every corner and gathered densely around the RV. There were at least several hundred of them. Meng Sherwan reversed the RV several meters, crushing dozens of zombies beneath it, before it became completely unable to move. The RV was immune to all damage, but its power was limited. Faced with such a dense mass of zombies, it was impossible for it to push its way through like a bulldozer. Even though it could run over the zombies, a large, uneven mass of them could easily cause the RV to lose its balance and overturn. That would be far too dangerous. Meng Sherwan brought the RV to a stop and looked up. The zombies had come running at the sound. Some crawled out of vehicles, some squeezed out of storefronts, and others ran over from the streets, converging into a dense mass with no gaps between them. Those closest to the RV frantically pounded on its outer walls and windows. They bared their teeth, their eyes gray, looking utterly terrifying. At that moment, Meng Sherwan felt her scalp go numb. This is bad, this is bad. I miscalculated. Who could have imagined that there would be a fair at the agricultural produce market? And such a lively one, at that. Chapter 24. You have to save yourself. Ta Shui's fur stood on end as it watched the commotion outside the window, hissing warily. Meng Sherwan made sure the driver's door was locked, then carried Ta Shui back into the motorhome. Things had come to this, so she might as well eat half a durian to calm her nerves. But eating durian by itself was too boring, so she turned on the monitor and put on a funny variety show. Wherever you fall, lie down there. She would take a nap first and worry about the rest later. Besides, the zombies couldn't break into the motorhome anyway. Ta Shui sat on the sofa, looking first at the vicious zombies outside, and then at its owner beside it, who was eating durian. It let out a heavy sigh. Life was truly difficult. Even cats had to sigh. Once the motorhome came to a stop, the engine shut off and the noise disappeared. The zombies that had gathered lost their target and milled about blankly in place. They did not leave, however. They remained packed tightly around the motorhome, blocking it incompletely. Meng Sherwan reached out and lowered the window a crack. The scent of fresh flesh drifted outside, and the zombies that had been wandering aimlessly grew excited again. The zombies around the motorhome tried to climb up, but the outer walls were too smooth. All that could be heard was the shrill sound of their fingernails scraping against the metal panels. The zombies farther away pushed and shoved desperately. Their heads pressed one against another as they made impatient, rasping noises. Meng Sherwan turned up the television to cover the din outside. The commotion among the zombie horde attracted the attention of the survivors inside the farmer's market. On the 6th floor of one of the buildings, a man cautiously stuck his head out to observe the situation, then quietly pulled it back in. Du Zitao slumped on the floor and said softly, "The zombies are all surging toward the road. I wonder what happened over there." The others in the room were filled with fear and tiptoed around, afraid to make a sound. His mother spoke up. "I think I heard the sound of a vehicle just now. How could anyone still be coming here at a time like this?" His wife frowned. "I saw online that a rescue team has already been formed and is working hard to rescue survivors. Could that be the rescue team?" Du's father lit a cigarette. "Given the situation around here, the rescue team might get wiped out if they came. It won't be easy." Before the zombie outbreak, a market had been organized here, and an opera troupe had even been invited to perform. It also happened to be right after the wheat harvest. Once the busy farming season was over, many farmers from the outskirts would come here to buy farming tools, machine parts, seeds, and the like. On top of that, the market itself was a major attraction, so the daily flow of visitors was enormous. People came one after another, and anyone walking along the streets could easily bump into someone or be bumped into. Their family ran a farming equipment store on the 1st floor. Du's father had even been thinking that, with business booming during the market, they would surely make quite a bit of money. No one had expected a zombie outbreak. That day, Du Zitao and his wife happened to be on leave, and had come back to visit the market and join in the excitement. Du's mother was at home preparing a meal, leaving Du's father alone to mind the shop downstairs. At noon, a customer browsing the farming equipment suddenly stiffened. His head twisted unnaturally, and he lunged at Du's father with bared teeth. Du's father initially thought the man was having a rabies attack. Terrified, he abandoned everything and hurried upstairs. He had intended to call security to come and take a look, but Du Zitao came running down from upstairs, his face filled with horror. "Dad, get home quickly, hurry." Without thinking, Du's father followed his son and ran home. As soon as they entered, Du Zitao locked the door from the inside, shoved a cabinet against it, and panted heavily. Du's father was still muttering, A customer in the shop had a rabies attack. I need to call security and have them take a look. I can't have someone steal my things while I'm gone. His daughter-in-law said in a trembling voice, Dad, it's not rabies. Look outside. Does father frowned, unable to understand why everyone looked as though they had seen a ghost. He came to the window and looked down, witnessing a scene he would never forget for the rest of his life. The streets below, packed with people, had become a hunting ground. He watched helplessly as a child bit down on his mother's hand. Soon, the woman's head tilted to one side, and she lunged at someone nearby, tearing into them and biting a chunk of flesh from their arm. The bitten man screamed in terror, but soon fell silent and opened his mouth to bite the others around him. Everyone was screaming and running, but the crowd was too dense. No one could get away. A large man pinned a petite woman to the ground and gnawed at her. Several people who had lost their minds held one person down and tore into them until their flesh was bloody and mangled. He saw a child have a large chunk of flesh bitten from their face by a woman, who chewed a few times before swallowing it. The entire street was filled with screams rising to the heavens, and bloodshed was everywhere. Dus father was speechless for a long while. What's happening? Du Zitao said hoarsely, zombies. I always thought zombies only existed in novels. I never imagined there would really be a zombie outbreak. Half an hour later, the streets gradually fell silent. Those who could hide had hidden. Those with nowhere to hide had all turned into zombies, now wandering the streets. Their family could be considered lucky. Every single one of them had survived. Dus mother prayed, I hope the rescue team has arrived. They have to get us out of here. This place is terrifying. Inside the RV, Meng Sherwan had eaten and drunk her fill. She moved the monitor aside and looked through the opening at the scene outside the windshield of the vehicle ahead. The zombies were still pressing toward them. Aside from cars and zombies, there wasn't even a gap on the road. She had to find a way to save herself. If she waited for the rescue team, she had no idea how long it would take. A month? 2 months? She couldn't wait that long. There was indeed plenty of food stockpiled inside the Arveno to last her several years. If she used the water sparingly, she could drink it for several months without a problem. The problem was that the fuel tank had not been expanded, leaving her with far too little fuel. The weather would grow hotter by the day. Within half a month, the temperature would rise to levels unbearable for humans. If the RV did not run the air conditioner, the inside would inevitably become like a steamer. But if she ran the air conditioner 24 hours a day, the solar panels on the roof definitely would not be able to provide enough power. She would need a gasoline generator, but the gas tank was small, and the fuel inside would not last more than a few days. Now, her only option was to fight her way out herself. There were at least 1,000 zombies surrounding them. The RV could not move, and it was even more impossible for her to hack down the zombies one by one. How to fight her way out had become the most pressing problem. If anyone else encountered this situation, they would inevitably panic and be completely at a loss. But who was she? She was Meng Sherwan, who had traveled back from 3 years in the apocalypse. Xiaoji, turn on the air conditioner and set the temperature to 10 degrees. Of course, master. The air conditioner is now on. Above the kitchen cabinets, beside the range hood, the air conditioner's vents opened. Cold air blew out, and the temperature throughout the RV rapidly began to drop. Meng Sherwan closed the windows and inspected the entire RV, making sure every window was tightly shut. From a corner at the rear of the vehicle, she took out a metal canister about the size of a large bottle of laundry detergent. It contained gasoline. The car factory had given it to her, and she had left it in the corner for so long that she had nearly forgotten about it. She then pulled a lighter from a gap in the shoe cabinet and went upstairs with the remote control. Ta Shui watched her bustling about with wide, round eyes, not knowing what she was doing. Chapter 25. The cannibalistic apocalypse. Meng Sherwan raised the roof of the vehicle a crack, squeezed through it, and climbed onto the roof above the cab. Standing there, she looked down and saw a dense sea of black heads. The zombies caught the rich scent of fresh blood and flesh and grew increasingly restless. They shoved and roared, wishing they had wings so they could fly up and devour her. Some of the zombies around the RV were pushed to the ground, while others stepped on the fallen zombies and climbed upward. If this continued, The RV would sooner or later be swallowed by the horde. Meng Sherwan crawled back to the second floor, stepped over a pile of daily necessities, and carried 2 buckets of cooking oil onto the roof of the cab. After several trips, she had brought out 7 or 8 buckets. Deciding that should be enough, she crawled out again. She picked up the gasoline she had brought up, unscrewed the cap, and hurled it out. Gasoline poured forth, splashing into the horde. She took out a lighter, ignited it, and tossed it away. The area sprayed with gasoline instantly erupted into raging flames, setting the zombies' clothes and hair ablaze as the fire rapidly spread. The RV was more than 10 meters from the tangled mass of cars that had crashed into one another. The flames from just 1 bucket of gasoline were not enough. She punctured the cooking oil containers and threw out 4 or 5 buckets, connecting them in a line. She tossed the remaining 3 buckets into the dense groups of zombies on either side. Fueled by the cooking oil, the fire grew even more ferocious. Meng Sherwan quickly crawled back into the RV and lowered the roof. The flames rapidly spread through the horde, devouring their clothes and hair and licking at their skin, filling the air with the smell of barbecue. When the fire spread to the vehicles ahead, gasoline that had possibly leaked from the collisions further intensified the blaze. Flames soared into the sky. Boom! A tremendous explosion sent fire bursting outward and spreading into the even more distant groups of zombies. In the blink of an eye, the entire intersection was engulfed in a sea of fire. Standing inside the RV, Meng Sherwan looked out through the windows on all sides. The entire vehicle was surrounded by orangered flames. The zombies writhed, twisted, burned, and collapsed in the inferno. Under the scorching flames, the temperature inside the RV rose. The air conditioner operated at full power, desperately pumping in cold air. Meng Sherwan appeared calm on the surface, but inside, she was panicking badly. "System, you said the RV is immune to all damage. You'd better not have tricked me. The tires can't melt, the battery can't explode, and the air conditioner can't stop. If anything went wrong, the wiring burned out or the air conditioner stopped, the RV would turn into an oven. Even if she and Takshu were not burned to death, they would still be roasted into dried meat." The fire grew fiercer and fiercer, while explosions continued to sound outside. Car fuel tanks ruptured, caught fire, and exploded in the high temperature, one after another, like a bombing site. Hearing the commotion, Du Zitao stuck his head out to look. All he saw was a rapidly spreading sea of fire. What a huge fire! It won't spread over here and burn down our entire street, will it? We weren't bitten to death by zombies, only to be burned alive. The soaring flames had dyed half the sky red. Thick black smoke billowed upward, and waves of heat rushed toward them. The others hurried over to look at the situation outside. The zombies on the street below were all gathering at the burning intersection. The flames set their clothes ablaze and spread toward them. Soon, the fire would reach the shops on both sides, and it might very well spread up along the buildings. Any survivors hiding inside would suffer as well. Everyone who was still alive was now sticking their heads out of the windows, their faces filled with anxiety. Clearly, they were all deeply worried about the situation. Du Fu calmed down a little. The explosion was caused by the vehicles on the road. The fire followed the horde of zombies into the street. Without gasoline to fuel it, it will be much smaller. To prepare for this gathering, someone came specifically to inspect and repair the smoke detectors and fire sprinklers in all the shops along the street. Once the detectors sense heavy smoke, the sprinklers will automatically spray water to put out the fire. If we pour water down from above to help, we should be able to stop the flames from spreading upstairs. They acted immediately. They didn't dare open the door to use the fire hydrants in the stairwell, so they could only fill basins and buckets from the faucets, carry them to the windows, and pour the water down. Wetting the area around the entrance downstairs could effectively prevent the fire from spreading. When the other survivors saw what they were doing, they realized the danger as well and followed suit, doing everything they could to splash water downstairs. Combined with the fire sprinklers activated inside the shops on the first floor, it actually worked. Chun Manning leaned against the wall with a bucket, panting heavily. "Do you think there might be survivors inside those cars? If there were, this fire would truly burn the survivors hiding inside the vehicles alive." Du Zitao thought his wife was overthinking it. "No. I've seen it with my own eyes. A zombie smashed through a car window, dragged out the person inside, and started eating them. With so many zombies wandering around, any survivors in those cars would have been dragged out and eaten too. Chun Manning felt her scalp prickle. She was incredibly grateful that the two of them had taken leave to come home for the market gathering. If they had encountered the zombie outbreak while at work, they probably wouldn't have survived until now. After worrying for half an hour, Meng Sherwan found that everything inside the RV was normal, and finally relaxed completely. The RV produced by the system was truly durable. It hadn't been damaged even after half an hour in the fire, proving that it really was immune to all damage. She could lie back and enjoy herself without worry. This fire wouldn't burn out anytime soon. She wanted to make an iced drink, but discovered that she had no ice. She moved some of the fresh food from the refrigerator space into the fish pond, freeing up a small area. Then she moved the frozen meat from the freezer drawer into the refrigerator space, freeing one drawer to freeze ice. When she went to fill it with water, she realized she didn't have any containers suitable for freezing ice. Meng Sherwan stood beside the sink and gazed up at the ceiling. I still haven't stocked enough supplies. But this didn't stump her. She filled 2 food storage bags with water, tied them shut, and put them in the freezer. Once they froze solid, she could smash them into pieces and use them just the same. She also cut the large watermelon remaining on the floor in half, and put it in the refrigerator to chill. She casually took out a bottle of chilled apple juice, lay on her stomach on the sofa, and played on her phone. From beneath the small table, she also pulled out a packet of watermelon seeds and ate them as she played. Ta Shui jumped onto her back, curled up into a ball, and fell asleep peacefully. Meng Sherwan shifted her hips. Ta Shui, get down. You're heavy. Ta Shui pretended not to hear her and continued sleeping. Meng Sherwan had no choice but to let it lie on top of her. There was nothing she could do. Had to spoil her own kitty. She opened a short video platform, where news about the zombie outbreak filled the screen. There's no food here, and there are zombies everywhere outside. I haven't eaten anything for 2 days. Someone please come save me. There are so many zombies outside. I'm so scared. Is this the apocalypse? Will I really survive? I saw the news online. Zombies have broken out across the entire world. We're finished. I discovered today that I can shoot fire from my palm. What's going on? Could I be one of those awakened superpowered heroes from the movies? Everyone was terrified and begging for help. They had been completely unprepared for this cannibalistic apocalypse. Many people didn't even know what had happened before they turned into mindless zombies and died.